You should definitely start drinking now. Socialist Swan, I see you there in the chat. How are you getting on, comrades? Good to see you there. Happy New Year's Eve. I hope you are all doing well. How are you getting on, Martin Barakov? I can't pronounce the name of this person, Howian Kuma. I can't pronounce that at all. That was terrible. I apologize for embarrassing myself and everyone else in the stream for having pronounced it. How are you getting on? Noodle Hoppa, Socialist Swan, Will Turner. Who else have we got here? Jessidiah. Temujin, Rachel Martinez, Nova Mac. How are you getting on? I hope you're doing well, just in time. Funny pun of a name. God love it. God love it. I'm drinking Desperados today. I hope you all have your drinks at the ready. Social Swan, please let us know what you're drinking there in the chats. And today we are joined by the mighty, the one and only Tankie Talk. Tankie Talk, would you like to introduce yourself to the good people?
Absolutely. How's everybody doing? Happy New Year's. I'm drinking some Jim Beam. So if there's any whiskey drinkers, we're drinking together. Cheers. I don't know. I have a YouTube channel and I all that good stuff. So how's everybody doing?
And definitely do go ahead and subscribe to that YouTube channel if you haven't seen it just yet. Link in the description box below. Follow on Twitter, all that good stuff. Give some support to our comrades. Yeah, so all good on my end. Happy to see the end of 2020. Fuck that year. Fuck that year so much. It was so bad. Just with COVID, the job situation, the impending economic crisis, climate catastrophe, the pandemic, just everything. It was just terrible. It was just one of the worst years. And I just saw like a headline as well there recently. It was like, what if the pandemic wasn't the worst? What if the worst was yet to come? Fuck that. Jesus Christ. We thought we'd have some relief.
Somebody was saying, I saw somebody online say like, 2020's over, 2021's here, and it's probably going to be equally as bad. And I was like, equally? You fucking optimist. Like,
it's going to be worse.
Well, see, I remember 2019 was supposed to be one of those years. It was like, oh, what a terrible year. Let's just get out of 2019. And then 2020 started with fucking, in the U.S. anyway, started with fucking Trump, Trump assassinating a fucking Iranian general.
I forgot about that. Fucking hell, yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy.
It was like
holy fuck.
World War III.
Exactly, yeah, World War III. And
it's gonna happen.
I was already following what was happening in China, and I was like, oh shit, this is gonna get here, and no one's ready for this. And then that happened, and etc. I was like, holy shit, what a fucking... 2019 was a goddamn cakewalk.
Oh my god, we didn't know how good we had it. Jesus Christ.
You could go back to 1 year ago and be like, you have it great, stay here.
Make the most of it. By the way, I see Bay Area 415 has joined the chat. Welcome, comrade. How are you getting on? Good to see you. Happy New Year. By the way, Happy New Year. I'm going to do a little drink to that. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, I see in the chat Jess is saying that Tankie's a little bit quiet. I'm going to hire you up a little bit there. Give me a sec. Hopefully that's a little bit better now. Yeah, so it's pretty fucked up. I'm hoping that 2021 is going to be a little bit better. I don't know if it will be, but I suppose with like vaccines and stuff like that slowly getting rolled out, I'm hoping things are going to get slightly better. But obviously, as soon as that gets better, like climate catastrophe is obviously always on the horizon. But the economic crisis, like the impending recession that we're heading into, like we're heading back into 2009, 2010. 11, 12. Do you remember when that? It was like really fucked up then, you know? I mean, and I don't know if like the left is organised and ready to deal with this at all, you know? Do you actually, I'm kind of curious, in terms of like the situation with the lefts, where you are. Obviously there was that, like the big uprising after the George Floyd situation. Rest in peace, by the way. How's it going on that front? Has there been any more movement? Or did it just kind of fizzle out? As these things often do.
The struggle continues. Like I was saying this before the stream, but for everyone in the stream. So in Chicago, the mayor, so there was somebody who had a no-knock warrant, Breonna Taylor, and the cops went to the wrong house and dragged this poor woman out of her fucking shower. She was in the middle of a shower, naked, and wouldn't let her put clothes on. And if you in the video, she's like crying and saying like, "You're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place." And they're like, "Ma'am, we need you to calm down." Like she's fucking naked. These fucking cops standing around her. Anyway,
so fucked up.
Yeah, crazy fucked up. And so seems to be a rumbling of something around that. It's kind of, and with the response of the mayor, because Alderman in Chicago, it's kind of split up with aldermen for different sections of the city, different wards. And they were told they're at like a meeting with the mayor. They were like, "What the fuck? What is this? Why, like, this happened like a year ago. No one knew about it. What the fuck's happening with this?" And the mayor's office fought the woman in court to not let her release the video. And so they were like, "What the fuck? Why are you trying to cover this up?" And so
fucking hell.
Yeah, so this is really similar to Rahm Emanuel, who was our last mayor with the murder of Laquan McDonald, where a cop ran up and just shot this guy in the street. So people are pretty pissed off about that. I know there's discussions happening of what's going to be going on with that. It's hard right now, and COVID really makes a catch-22 because things are getting worse and worse and worse, but really no one wants to be in big groups. So that's why there's been car caravans and things like that, and that's kind of the best you can expect a lot of people to be willing to do when there's like 5,000 new COVID cases a day and over 100 COVID deaths a day in the state. You know what I mean?
Fucking hell. And
so it's like this. It's terrible.
And did it, fucking hell, did it get worse over like the holiday seasons with like Christmas and everything like that? Maybe, yeah, I suppose like Thanksgiving and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, so after Thanksgiving, there was a big peak, and then it started to come down. So it's actually been coming down. We were pushing around 200 deaths a day. We went over 200 deaths a day for a while.
Crazy.
And then now it's on its way down. And then I'm sure it's going to be like next week is going to be a big jump for Christmas, I'm assuming. And then the week after that's probably going to be the big jump for New Year's. And I mean, shit's not closed down. Like, it's the fucking Wild West here. It's like so frustrating. I walk around just my neighborhood and like, every restaurant is supposed to have no indoor dining. That's what the governor said. But in the United States, it's all a fucking suggestion. At least in my state, it's all a fucking suggestion. Every restaurant is open. Every restaurant is full of people. It's fucking, it's terrible. I walk around, I'm just frustrated constantly.
Jesus fucking Christ. Oh man, that's fucking bleak. That's fucking bleak. Any hope?
Yes,
any optimism? Is there any optimism? Any glimmer of hope for 2021 that you have for us?
Yeah, no, I mean,
FRSO.
glimmer of hope. Yeah, exactly. I think that organizing is happening, and from what I'm seeing, because during a movement, there's a big uptick in people who are interested, and then once the movement, not that it's necessarily fizzling out or whatever, but once the exciting protests are done, then you see people start to leave. And what I'm seeing from someone who really got involved around the summer is that there's a lot more people than there were at first, even if there's less people that were there for like the big protests.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right. So more people are actually joining the organizations.
Exactly. More people are joining, more people are taking part and making it a part of their routine or whatever. They're making it their normal to organize, that's positive. And that needs to continue.
Definitely. I mean, like, actually, I was just talking to Deadman about this yesterday. Deadman Animations was on, and we were talking about how like there's kind of a tendency towards movementism across the West, I think, where a lot of organizations, a lot of people who were kind of very angry and full of energy and passion as a result of the horrific things that they see around them every day, all day, every day, and they just sort of get involved like in movements, and it's just like such and such a protest goes on and people just kind of tail the protests and tail the masses, and a lot of organizations often find themselves doing that as well, which is unfortunate, and so people aren't really organized. People don't really have a clear path forward and trajectory for how we can actually make revolution. And there's kind of a hope amongst a lot of people that we're just going to have lots of protests. We're going to have a protest here and a protest there and an uprising here, and somehow they're going to maybe coalesce at some point, and there's going to be some kind of socialist revolution somehow, and we're going to magically get past this horrific capitalist system that we find ourselves in, and unfortunately we know that that's not going to happen. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, it's a very romantic view of like, it'll just, all of these things will one day just magically connect.
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
like, no, it's about that on the ground organizing, and it's about listening to the people. That's something that I've been thinking a lot about. Is you see a lot of parties that, or a lot of this individual comrades who, I don't know, they want to kind of dictate to the working class what the working class should care about.
Yeah.
But the working class is constantly telling us as Marxist-Leninists what they care about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't need us to be like, care about this. It's not like the Bolsheviks. This is what I was thinking about the other day. It's not like the Bolsheviks were like, okay, so you all want peace, land, and bread. But what you really want is whatever, these other three things. You know, they were like, no, people want peace, land, and bread. And that is that we want peace, land, and bread too, because we're part of the fucking, we are the proletariat too. So I don't know. I get this. I see this every now and again where it's like, no, the working class really wants this. And it's like, no, the working class is in the streets right now, or the working class is, you know, they're fighting for this, they're fighting for that. Why are you fighting against the working class? Why are you trying to dictate to them what they should want? I don't know. It's a weird thing that I see, especially in the US, where like, I feel like it's a chauvinistic tendency. And all it ends up doing is like alienating would-be, you know, vanguard parties who want to be the vanguard party, who declare themselves the vanguard party, which is kind of ironic in itself. And then they're alienated because all they end up doing is like, well, one day the working class will be smart enough to see that we're right. And it's like, that's not the point. Like, you're completely missing the point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's commandism. It's literally just commandism, you know, which I think is kind of like the opposite to, you know, tailism, where you're just kind of like behind the masses and chasing the masses wherever they happen to go. You kind of just follow them. You're kind of dragging behind them like a tail. This is kind of commandism, where, you know, you sort of perceive yourself to be ahead of the masses and you're kind of guiding them. And it's kind of this very elitist. It's this very kind of like elitist kind of perspective. You're telling people what they want and what they need and stuff like that. And when really, I suppose we need to be kind of in the middle. You know, we need to be among and with the masses. You know, okay, we offer guidance, we help maybe offer clarity to certain situations, maybe we put a more systemic analysis on something that maybe is felt more subjectively and individually. Maybe we tie a few things together, but always among the masses, I think is super important. I suppose that's where your mass line and stuff like that comes in as well, making sure that you're always in there. You know, unfortunately there's so many communist and socialist organizations that are just completely detached from the working class, and they honestly don't even seem like they're interested in actually doing exactly what you're talking about. They're not even interested in it. Right. You know?
Yeah, they have no, exactly. And they get kind of defensive when you're like, well, against this is what people are fighting for. This is the struggle. Like, what the fuck are you against the struggle for? And people are like, I don't know, I just don't think that's a productive way to move forward. But like, well, fuck, man, then I guess you don't want to move forward at all, because that's where people are moving. And I think CPAC's a good example of what you were talking about with. So in Chicago, there's a push for CPAC, which was one of the demands of the Black Panthers, which is community control of the police, where there's elected people within the community that can't have ties to the cops or the state government or the city government, and that they get to control funding, they get to control policies, so whether like cops carry guns, and they get to pretty much, instead of like an oversight board where you're just watching over, they completely control the police. It would be like a community controlled police. And so that's a push that's been in Chicago for a long time. So this summer with the defund the police, which, you know, very big call, very grassroots, you know, the talk about like movement, it was a very movement oriented call for defunding the police. And what I saw comrades who were doing in CPAC, which kind of what you were talking about, where instead of being like, no, you don't want defund the police, you want CPAC. What they were doing is like, well, we want the same thing. You know, like, you want to defund the police, CPAC allows us to defund the police, let's fight for it together. And then so that at these actions, you're working with the organizers, or you are the organizers, and you're making those connections in the movement, and then so it can be organic. It's not about telling people, no, you don't want this, you want this other thing, trust me, I'm a really smart person. It's like, no, you go and you're like, we want the same thing. Let's fight for the same thing.
Exactly.
And yeah, so it's like not so much like you were saying commandism as much as being a part of the movement and working with the movement. You got to be a part of it. I don't know, I feel like there's like an isolation and an alienation that comes with people who just try to completely disregard what the working class cares about, and that's ridiculous. It's counterproductive to me. It's counterintuitive. Like, how are you going to be a Marxist-Leninist and say I know better than the working class? Like, you are the fucking working class.
Exactly.
Like, you're just being an ass. You're trying to tell people what to do.
Get down off the fucking high horse, mate. Genuinely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, there's a question for you, somewhat related to what we're talking about there. I had it written down, but it's it's gone now. Let me pull it up there. Rachel Martinez asked, Tankie, are there a lot of anti-vaxxers in your area? Anti-vaxxers.
Not that I've seen. No, not that I've seen. Like, the anti-vaxxer thing frustrates me to no end, just because I am slightly nervous about the vaccine in the state, because I'm a teacher and we were made essential workers because they wanted to keep schools open. So we're really high on the list to get the vaccine, which I'm excited and optimistic for, while at the same time being critical of the U.S. state, which I just don't trust. Something that's been approved so quickly, and the U.S. state's like, no, really, it's safe. And I'm like, ugh, like I don't trust you, but at the same time, I don't want to fucking die of COVID. So that's, you know, but and the anti-vaxxers, even though I don't see them generally, it makes it really fucking hard for someone like me who's not an anti-vaxxer at all, but just critical of this specific vaccine because it came out so quick. It makes it really hard to know it's true because I try to read up on it and be informed on it, and it's like half of the stuff is so overly positive that I'm skeptical, and then half of the stuff is so overly negative that I'm like, this is anti-vaxxer bullshit. Like, can we get like an honest assessment? Like, I just want an honest assessment. What are my chances, doc? Tell me. Like, if I get the shot, am I gonna fucking? I don't know. And the U.S.
Which
media,
one is that?
Which one is what?
Which you said you're critical of a certain vaccine. Is this like which one is like the Pfizer one? Do you know which one it is?
Oh yeah, no, it's the Pfizer.
The Pfizer
yeah, it's
one.
the Pfizer one. The Moderna one's out too, but it's pretty much the same thing as the Pfizer one. Everything, it's like a 2-shot thing that you have to wait about 10, 15 days after the second one to be covered, and they say it has the same risk for people who are have first drug reactions often, which I don't. So that's why I'm generally good with it. But as far as anti-vaxxers go, the only time I hear anything about them is when I'm trying to do research and I realize I'm reading something called like truthvax.org or some shit. And I'm like, fuck, you guys make it so hard to know it's fucking real. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, I just want to know if it's okay. I'm about to shoot myself up with this drug I know nothing about.
Oh my God.
Fucking stop muddying the waters.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, you're like on this fucking website called like the keepers of wisdom, you know, the harborers of knowledge, you know. main page is like all the inner sanctum or something like that, and you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, the vaccine is evil, and also like the evil Jewish boogeymen are coming to steal your soul. And I'm like, fuck, they tricked me. They got me. No article before. You got to the anti-Semitism, and now I know you're full of shit. I wasted my day.
We got hoodwinked.
Exactly. But yeah, so no, I don't see anti-vaxxers a lot. There are a lot. I was just reading in Ohio that 60% of nurses passed on the vaccine. And I'm not in Ohio, but that's a fucking lot of nurses that are refusing to get the vaccine, which is a problem. That's a problem.
It's questionable.
Especially in the U.S., where, like I said, COVID is running fucking rampant. I mean, they're saying that we're going to have to get 90% of people vaccinated before it'll really do what we need it to do because so many people are getting and spreading COVID.
Jesus fuck.
So it's alarming that so many people are refusing to, I don't know, get the vaccine. And I think, look, honestly, I think this comes down to no one trusts the fucking U.S. government. And even if they don't,
fair.
Even if they don't understand it from like a Marxist perspective or from like a I don't know, class conscious perspective, there's this inherent distrust on both sides of the state and of the media, which I was saying before this all rolled out, I was like, it's going to be a huge fucking problem. And the media is not, they're doing so bad in educating people about what the vaccine is and how it works. And
yeah,
it's just frustrating.
I feel you.
Yes.
I heard that actually in China they've had like the vaccine for a few months now, but I think it's mostly well, if I'm not mistaken, there's like you can get like a private version of it. There's like in the private sector, sort of the private health sector, and they've got a small private health sector over there, and like you've just been able to go in and just basically get the vaccine for maybe the past like 4 or 5 months in China. Just like no big deal, just you can go in and get that, and yeah, it seems to have a pretty good success rate. I'm not sure. To my knowledge, we're not able to get the Chinese vaccine in the Western world just due to, political reasons, really. But I know places like Brazil and stuff like that are getting it, and yeah, it seems to be pretty successful. So, although I don't know if you saw that thing like where there was trials on one of these vaccines. I can't remember which vaccine it was exactly, but it was like the trial had to be halted because someone died after receiving the vaccine. Someone died, but. Yeah. And people are like, oh shit, someone died after getting the vaccine. It's like, yeah, they committed suicide.
Oh, yeah.
What a fucking like, no, like they literally just committed suicide. Like they killed themselves. It wasn't like the vaccines didn't do anything. It's just
that's also sad. But yeah, no,
it's sad,
and
it was kind of, again, that was kind of like politically, it was used like politically against the producers of the vaccine. But Anyway, yeah, it's so fucking cynical just how this COVID situation has been manipulated for political interests, for the purposes of certain interest groups. But yeah, I mean, what else do we expect? What else we shouldn't expect any better. Community, we have a number of questions in the chat here, some good ones, fun to discuss over the stream. Here's one that might be you might be better to answer than I would. This is from Jessica. It was asked earlier. I apologize for not answering it earlier. I'm just after seeing it recently. Paul, I'll ask now so I can get some work done. Can Tankie and you commiserate us about the stimulus checks and COVID situation? Any words of comfort? So now here we go. Words of comfort. After all of the doom and gloom that we've been peddling.
Any words of comfort? Oh man, I think they came to the wrong stream.
By the way, the stimulus check. What's the recent update on that?
It's going to be 600. It looks like the Senate.
No, 2,000.
The Senate blocked the $2,000. The whole thing was a fucking shit show. Everything. I'm sorry. So positivity. Positivity is you can afford to get some pretty cost-effective handguns for less than $600, comrades in the U.S.
Freedom.
Positivity. Exactly. Go train on handguns. If you can't, look, the U.S. government has got itself in this fucking catch-22 situation where they did nothing, and now so many people are so behind on their rent and so behind on everything that unless the U.S. we keep having moratoriums on evictions, but that's literally just kicking the can down the road. These people who are, like so many people can't afford their rent, and then the U.S. government's like flicking $600 at them. It's like, what the fuck are people supposed to do with $600? Like, so either the U.S. government, either they're going to have to give such a big stimulus check, cover what at this point could be up to 9 months of fucking back rent, or they're going to have to completely ban evictions, which they're not going to do either of those fucking things. So they're just going to keep kicking the can down the road until all of a sudden fucking millions of people at the same time are evicted. Like the U.S. government, they fucking played themselves. They fucked themselves.
Swear to God.
And
this fucking kamikaze capitalism. What the fuck do they think is going to happen here? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know what they're envisioning. Where they're like, oh yeah, it's like, I forget the specific number, but it's millions of people. Millions of people are on the verge of eviction, and they would be evicted if the moratorium wasn't put back in place, which they just put back in place from what I read. But when that moratorium expires, what the fuck do they think's going to happen? Like, I don't understand what their end game is. They're playing themselves.
Fucking hell, what an absolute joke. I don't think that was quite what Jessica I was looking for. Apologies, comrade, but there's not there's not that much to be optimistic about, I suppose. Well, no, that's not true. We got some nice drinks in front of us here, so yeah, there's at least that, exactly. Oh, and by the way,
and the optimistic part is, look, we need to work with each other. That's it. We're only going to get through this together. We're only going to get through this if we stick together as the working class.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need to do. And so I guess the positive thing is that make sure you're getting out and working, because only we're going to be able to fucking deal with it. Because obviously the bourgeois state is just going to kick the can down the road until everybody's fucking homeless or dead. Like, that's what they're going to do. So our positivity has to come from us, and we have to work together. We got to take care of ourselves. Literally, the working class has no other option. Either we're all fucking dead or we fucking take care of ourselves. Because, like you said, it's kamikaze capitalism. They're leaving us to fucking die. So we need to get it together as the working class. There's a positive note wrapped up in really depressing shit.
There's like a glimmer of hope amidst everything, a diamond in the rough, as they say somewhere there. Brilliant, thank you very much, comrade. Appreciate that. There's a bunch of really interesting questions here. We go in all kinds of directions with this stuff. Get ready, Tankie Talk. We're in for a good chat this evening. Here's a fun one that's kind of related to the US and situation and political situation in the US and stuff like that. Well, kind of. Actually, pretty much all of them are. Okay, I'm just going to pick this one because this is kind of relevant to you in particular. It does reference like the FRSO. Alex asked, in the States, is it possible or even worth uniting the different ML parties into an umbrella party? Is the CPUSA salvageable, or is it inherently problematic? And then another final question, FRSO and decolonization, question mark.
Okay.
A lot there.
So, is it possible to create an umbrella party? Possible. I don't know. That's way above my pay grade. I think that there's inherent differences between the different parties and the different lines. That's why they're different parties.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sure. Whatever. As long as we're all in the street fighting, like I'm good with it. I honestly don't know if there's a possibility of something like that. I guess that would be cool in theory, I guess, depending on how those lines were worked out. If there was some kind of big party thing that happened. What was the next one? Is the Communist Party?
Yeah, is the
salvageable?
is CPUSA salvageable, or is it inherently problematic?
Look, if people are in the streets organizing and fighting, I'm all for it. I think I said that last time on the stream too. I don't want to like be too sectarian, but I disagree with some of the stuff from them. I know you earlier on Twitter. You were talking about like the socialism with American characteristics.
Don't get me started on that.
Or the USSA.
The USSA, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All day, my entire day, people have been coming at me for that one.
No, I mean, you were right. Your take was right, and that was one of the things that I'd say as far as like a difference between my position and the CPUSA's position would be I don't know if the CPUSA as an official position has a USSA standpoint. I know that they seem to have comrades in their party who regularly push that, and I disagree with it vehemently. Which I guess works good into the next one is I'm just to be clear, just like last time, I'm here as an individual, not as a representative of FRSO.
Of course,
so I recommend people going to the website and reading that information. I don't want to speak on behalf of the party. But if you read a lot of the positions on decolonization and support for the national struggles for the nationally oppressed communities, FRSO supports. I like the way they word it. Is they support supporting national liberation up to and including secession from the United States, if that's what that community decides that they want to do.
Based.
And I think that's the best. It's great, honestly, yeah. Before that, I was really like, I support the Black Belt and I support, return of indigenous lands and the return to the Chicanos, return to the land of and to the Chicanos. Mm-hmm. And I think that I like the way FRSO words it, because there is kind of a little bit. I feel like both sides of the argument sometimes get a little too, too prescriptive to nationally oppressed communities, where that one side is like, no, you can't have land. And the other side is like, yes, you're going to have land. And I liked FRSO's wording of like, we support it up to and including. Like, if you all decide you want to succeed and you want to leave the United States and you want land, the Black Belt and all of these other nations, then we support that. But that's your discussion to have, not our discussion to have. And I think that that's the best attitude to have as a multinational party, because FRSO is a multinational Marxist-Leninist party. It's not a nationally oppressed community party for national liberation specifically, if that makes sense.
Well, look, that's
my interpretation of speaking as an individual.
Yeah, no, and that's a really, really good way of describing it. I mean, look, that's always been the traditional Marxist-Leninist Bolshevik line. It's to support the right to self-determination for all nations. It's the right to do it. If you choose to do that.
Exactly.
Excuse. Sorry, the beard went down the wrong way. I'm choking.
Wrong too.
Let me wash that down with another swig. Excuse me.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers to that. Cheers to choking on New Year's Eve. One last kick in the teeth from 2020.
Exactly.
Yeah, but anyway, that's the thing. It's the right to self-determination. If people choose to do that, even if. I mean, like this was teased out even by like Lenin and the comrades and the Bolsheviks. Even if they choose to have like a capitalist society, self-determination, and still, that's what they've got to do. Then that's what they've got to do. They'll get to socialism eventually, but look, we need to deal with the national question and colonial question. It's super important. We can't just
exactly.
plaster over that.
When people talk about the USSA, I don't know what they envision. And to me, it just comes off like the only thing they can envision has to be like crazy chauvinistic. Like, what, you're going to be like, no, indigenous people, we control what you're going to do. Or like, what are they going to have, a reservation system like the current U.S. has, which is inherently fucking terrible and fucking chauvinistic in itself and oppressive? I don't know. So I don't know what they envision. And every time someone tries to explain it to me, it ends up coming off really kind of racist. Where it's kind of like, well, I mean, there's such a small population. Why should we listen?
Why should we care? Yeah.
That's not what the majority of the workers want. And it's like, that's a fucked up position to have. That's not the Marxist-Leninist position.
Totally not, no. You don't care about the workers. You're talking about this. Like, what workers are you talking about? Are you only talking about, like, fucking fair-skinned people? I mean, what the fuck are you talking about here, you know? It's a little bit problematic. And actually, on that particular question, Rachel Martinez has asked, what's your problem with socialism with American characteristics? What is your criticism of it? Well, I want to say, like, first and foremost, this isn't actually really a reference to, like, China, socialism with Chinese characteristics. That's not really what I'm talking about at all here. When I made that little tweet earlier on talking about this, it's not like a slight on that. That's a whole different conversation. But basically, the point is that there's this massive imperialist empire, America. I mean, it was formed to be an empire. I mean, literally George Washington literally called it a nascent empire. The founding fathers was calling it like a nascent empire, and then later on an infant empire is literally how we refer to it. You know, so they were quite proud of it actually being an empire, and it's an empire by every definition of the term. The classical term in terms of just like owning lots of the colonies and this expansionism and so on and so forth. Also in the Marxist-Leninist definition, according to Lenin's theory of imperialism, it matches all 5 characteristics of it. And I went through that yesterday in the stream with Deadman. If people are curious to learn a little bit more about the US as an empire and US imperialism and stuff like that. So there's kind of a problem here when some people suggest that we can just have America with socialism. We can just do socialism in America as is. You know, we've got this empire, and we're just going to sort of put socialism on top of it, and we're just sort of going to forget about the territories that were stolen. You know, we're going to forget about the colonies. We're just going to pretend that didn't really happen. There's massive problems there, and I tried to liken it to sort of the situation with Ireland. You know, so I gave this example, and I said that, you know, if someone said to me, come here to me, why don't you just have socialism with British characteristics in Ireland? You know, Ireland was historically part of the British Isles and part of the UK as a result of colonisation. And so there can be some chauvinists who might say, yeah, well, why don't you just do socialism with British characteristics? And we're like, well, no, we're a separate nation. We don't want the colonizers imposing their system onto us. You know, we need the right to self-determination for ourselves. And if you're not respecting that right to self-determination, then you're not following the Bolshevik Marxist-Leninist line, or Marxist-Leninist Maoist line either, whatever. That's a fundamental problem, you know. It's the term, when we talk about the United States of America, it kind of gives the impression as though this was a union of different states. It actually wasn't. I mean, these are territories. These are annexed parts. I mean, like they annexed out, like California, for example, is just annexed from Mexico. Look at places like Guam and stuff like that. Look at Guam, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands. I mean, they have no fucking place. Hawaii, yeah. Hawaii is kind of lucky. That got granted statehood. At least they get to vote on who their president is, you know. If you're in Guam or if you're in Puerto Rico, you don't. You don't get a vote on the person who's ruling you, which is super. These are literal colonies, you know.
Literally colonies.
Literally colonies. And like we need to deal with this colonial question. We can't just carry on as America, you know. It can't just keep going with the American empire with socialism on top of it, because ultimately the America as we know it today is built on settler colonialism. It is founded on the genocide of indigenous people. It's built on the backs of slavery, and it's basically got these imperialist foundations that make it antithetical to socialism. It fundamentally goes against everything we understand to be as socialists, and that's also like, even just like from like a terminological perspective, like the name America comes from some fucking Italian merchant from like the 1400s or something like that. Yeah, so why the fuck would you call it that? Like, when there's all these indigenous people who've like lived here for all this time, and you're gonna just name it after this fucking like Italian bloke, this Italian merchant? What the fuck? Why are you gonna do that? It doesn't make any sense, you know. So there needs to be, you know, like when we talk about like as Marxist-Leninists, we talk about smashing the bourgeois state. We talk about smashing it and creating a new one. That's what needs to happen. There needs to be a whole new situation created here. And as you said very, very eloquently and articulately with the FRSO statement, up to and including the right to cessation of any nations or any oppressed groups who want to, you know. So we need to go back to the drawing board. We can't just like carry on with colonialism, with literal colonialism going on in 2020, and we can't keep going on with neo-colonialism as it's happening right now, like this extractive economic colonialism that's happening all over the world. You know, we can't just keep going on with like having over 800 military bases all across the world when the rest of the countries, all of the other countries.
That's what I'm saying. I have to, and I feel like I worry that I'm making like a straw man, but I don't know what I'm fucking supposed to picture when they say that, and then every time they explain it to me, like I said, it becomes a thing of like, well, the majority of the working class wants this, and it's like, but you're talking about the white working class. Like, you're kind of, what they're doing is pointing at that the U.S. is a settler colonial state that is primarily European descended, and then going, see, that we should just keep it the way it is, and it's like, that's the fucking problem. Like, that's talk about chauvinism. Like, you're just gonna fucking continue on imperialism and national oppression. Like, that's what you're talking about, and that's fucking, I don't know. That's contrary to what I believe, and that's. I think it's contrary to Marxism-Leninism.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, like when you just even to go back to that, like military, the military bases, like there's like 30. All of the other countries combined in the world have about 30 military bases internationally outside of their own territories. And the US has
the US
over
occupies
800.
the whole fucking world.
Yeah, exactly. Occupies everywhere. So it's this horrific imperialist death machine. It needs to go. Absolutely. Even the 50-state structure as it is, there's going to be probably some amount of breaking up of that structure as is, you know, especially like when we talk about things like places like Hawaii and stuff like that, you know. There's probably going to be cessations there. I don't know how far that's going to go. That's going to be decided based on the people who live there and the nations that are living there, especially the indigenous people, all the colonized people.
Exactly right.
You know, so I don't know how far that's going to go, how much it's going to balkanize. I can't say. That's not for me to say. You know, that's for the people to say. That's their right to self-determination. But
you're taking the words right out of my mouth right now. I have nothing yet. I have nothing to add.
Well, a lot of people on Twitter had a lot to add.
I think the best response on your tweet was someone saying, well, then what are we going to call it then? Because it's before it was called the United States, it didn't have a name. It's like, we can come up with a new name. Like,
if that's the fucking deal breaker, then...
Yeah, exactly. That's the sticking point.
For fuck's sake.
Well, then what do we call it?
We can't have a new country. What are we going to call it? All the names are taken.
All the names are taken. There's no more country names. We checked. That's it. That's all we have.
Actually, here's an interesting question, and I'm not actually fully versed in this enough to answer fully, but Crack Elf has asked, which is a great name, what are both of your thoughts on the colonial question of Cuba in regards to the indigenous Taino, I can't pronounce the name, Taino people? Do they have the right to self-determination as a nation? I mean, absolutely. I would just, in principle, 100%. But this is a very, very interesting question, because how do we reconcile these two concepts against like a socialist or socialist-oriented state, at least in Cuba? You know, how do we reconcile these ideas? You know, I'm also not 100% sure. I've heard some people saying that like this people, the Taino people, are kind of well, how can I say? Like it seems like most of them kind of have, unfortunately and horrifically and tragically, died out. So I'm not really 100% sure how that sort of fits into the conversation. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any knowledge about this that might fill in the gaps?
I don't know. Yeah, like I wouldn't want to speak. Yeah, like I said, I don't know 100%. I know that. I mean, the Cuban Revolution was heavily supported, and then the government now in Cuba, especially local governments, are largely made up of Afro and indigenous Cubans. So that's positive. But I wouldn't want to, presume to tell Cuba what to do or something like that. I don't know if that's where that question is coming from. I know that if you want to compare it to what was going on with Bautista, I mean, it was literally like a pseudo slave state. So with plantations, all that shit.
Yeah, it was definitely progressive. It was definitely you can't make any kind of other kind of arguments, But I mean,
something that comes to mind too is like I remember reading that there was a big protest movement in like the early on after the revolution in Cuba, and it was picking up steam, or there was I forgot what I read, it didn't specify exactly what it was about. But Fidel went to it, listened to the demands of the organizers, and then they came to a conclusion that was amicable for both sides. And like that's the difference between a capitalist state and a socialist state. I mean, the socialist state
they work with them,
Yeah, exactly. The socialist state sees their unrest and goes to the people and goes, "What's the problem? Let's figure out a way to make this work." The capitalist state fucking six cops on people and fucking shoots people and all this fucking crazy shit that happened in the United States just in the last couple months, and it's still fucking happening.
Jesus fucking Christ, yeah.
So I don't know. So that comes to mind as well. Though, like I said, I wouldn't presume to speak over people in Cuba about it. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, the first question is like, do they want self-determination? Do they want their own territory, their own, like, their autonomy, their own regions? I mean, what do they want? I mean, and then that would be negotiated accordingly, But definitely, I would support their right to self-determination 100%. You would just it would need to be negotiated and figured out and worked out, and one would hope that it would be under a socialistic kind of government. I mean, look at like Ukraine and stuff like that. Like with the USSR. Like, I mean, they basically like revived, Ukraine nationality, the language, like everything, like in the USSR. So, I think that if you have a socialist state, it's kind of on the shoulders of the governments to kind of lift up these nations, and restore them in some senses, because even if you look at like Ireland and stuff like that, we've got a job of work to do in terms of restoring our own nationhood, really, in terms of restoring our own language as something that's used, the Irish language, and which is one of the parts of what defines a nation, according to Stalin's definition in Marxism, the national question. So like we need to get our own language back, and there's a job of work to do there, and obviously we need to retain take back the 6 counties, the occupied 6 counties in the north, so that's another thing that needs to be done. And so I think that certainly socialist government needs to work with the people and be respectful of the people, the Taino people. I'm probably mispronouncing that, and I apologize, but yeah, definitely I completely support their right to self-determination, even if they want to, go off and do their own thing, and it's actually more, I don't know, capitalistic than Cuba might be, So
yeah, exactly. And I would, like I said, I would be shocked if this is a call going on in Cuba, if Cuba's like ignoring it or something. I trust the Cuban Marxist-Leninists who have been able to withstand the worst fucking embargo and been able to withstand the collapse of the Soviet Union, able to withstand all these things, that they are principled enough or capable enough or something to traverse the landscape of this question on their own.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the questions, comrades. Okay, we'll jump back to some other questions that we had a little bit earlier. Okay, so coming back up to some questions that were asked earlier. Now, this is an interesting one. Will Turner asked Paul, thoughts on comrades from the 30s and 40s having anti-LGBTQ plus people. I think it's anti-LGBTQ plus attitudes towards people is probably the question here. It sucks.
Yeah,
it's shit.
Thumbs down for that. But
Very much thumbs down.
Yeah, exactly. All the thumbs down, and let's not do that. I think for the most part, from what I see, Marxist-Leninists in the U.S. generally get this right.
Yeah, unlike the UK, I think.
Focus on generally. I'm sure there's exceptions to that rule, but generally get it right now. So that's good, and they should continue to get it right. Definitely,
100%. And I would definitely implore comrades who are part of organisations that maybe have a problematic line on LGBTQ plus stuff. Do what you can to line struggle, improve that line for the future, because this is important stuff. It does sometimes get written off by people who claim to be sort of orthodox Marxists. They claim to be, I don't know what they claim to be. They use these weird theoretical justifications to justify these horrifically discriminatory attitudes, and fuck that. We don't need it. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the working class. It doesn't help us. And it's wrong. It's just objectively, scientifically wrong. So fuck that.
Yeah, exactly. And members of the LGBTQ community have been leading parts of every fucking movement ever. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just, they're, as far as the community goes, the community's always been, even outside of just the struggle for LGBTQ plus rights, has been an active part of national liberation struggle, an active part of working class struggle. It's like all of those things.
Exactly.
So I mean, yeah, of course. Like, why? That would be fucking. That's stupid.
They're our class. They're our class. I mean, let's protect our class. Let's protect our class, our comrades who need support. So yeah, absolutely great. Yeah. Here's an interesting one. Sort of thinking about positive things we can do for the future. No, Noodle Hoppa, excuse me, says Fred Hampton said we must not judge church folks and build coalition. That's how he got the breakfast programs out there. What other ways can we build solidarity in the community? So what are some good ways you think that we can build solidarity in our communities? Which actually I think might be more of a challenging question now in light of COVID and stuff like that. But do you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. Look, we have to be a part of our communities. I think that that's and for new Marxists, and then for some not so new Marxists, it becomes a knee-jerk. We were talking about this earlier, to kind of want to dictate to the community what the community wants. And that's not the point. Be a part of your community. And as far as specific things, I mean, I look up to people who do mutual aid to an incredible amount. And I like one comrade I was talking to who does mutual aid was talking about how it starts with just talking to the people in your community who need something, like just like, what do you need? And building the relationship by just trying to support each other. Because like I said, we, especially with COVID and with everything going on, we're the only ones that can take care of each other in the community. And as a working class community, and an international working class community, we have to take care of each other, and we have to worry about taking care of our neighbors as much as we worry about taking care of ourselves. And because there's no like quick answer, every community might need something slightly different. One thing that I was thinking about is I work with the Chicago Alliance, and the Chicago Alliance struggles a lot for victims of police torture and people who are like wrongfully imprisoned or tortured to give confessions. And put victims of police brutality. And people in the community now come to the Alliance and they're like, this happened to my family member. What can we do? And somebody did that recently. And the organization was like, well, we need to make sure we're forming a movement around it, because if there's not pressure, then nothing's going to happen. And we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And they're like, okay, well, how do we do that? Like, don't worry, we're going to do that. Like, that's what we'll do. And I think that's the kind of relationship we have to set up with the community, even if it's something specific and pointed. Because maybe your organization isn't going to do fucking everything, and that's okay. But if you become good at one thing and can do one thing for your community, then the community knows that you are there for them. Yeah. And if something happens, that they can come to you as an organization and say, I need help, what can I do? And then we just have to, help. That's it. Then we just do what we do.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like, you pretty much described mass line a lot of what you're describing there. Like, literally go to the masses. Ask them what their concerns are, Ask them, like, literally knock on doors. I mean, if you have an organization, you can easily make this happen. You literally just knock on the doors, bring a little notepad with you, or just even on your phone, and literally just knock on people's doors and say, what are the issues in the area that you're concerned about? You take that back to your party, you take that back to your organization, interpret that and put it through a Marxist, Leninist, or whatever it might be, framework, and then you bring it back. You make a plan of action based on that, and you solve the problems. You solve the problems as they are and as they arise. Other things that you could do. Well, if we weren't like living during the plague. During COVID, there are things you could do, like you could, for example, like pool a bit of money together with yourself and a few comrades and rent out like a room in a community centre some night, and you could get people to come in, and you could advertise it around the place, and you could get people to come in, and they could be sort of like workshops for just helping people out. You could also do the sort of mass line work in there, where you could actually be sort of talking to people. And what are your problems, what are your issues, but you could actually be given like proper educational sessions in there, or like anything, like just whatever kind of help you see that people require in your community, you can do in these places. Like, for example, if you're talking to a lot of people, when you're knocking on doors and you realize that people are having problems, there's a lot of people who are unemployed, they want to get jobs, then you can literally have like a session where you go in there and you practice doing like interviews, like job interviews, or showing people like how to make CVs, or I don't know, like resumes, I suppose. I think in the US, is that? Do you say resumes or is it CVs?
Yeah, resumes. I don't know what the other thing.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, curriculum vitae. I think it's some pompous Latin shit. Basically,
You're good.
it's like your credentials and
President.
shit. Your credentials anyway, so you can get jobs. So like all those sorts of things, like you can actually help people and like really like hold their hand and take them through it. And it's not necessarily you just giving to them either. Like 'cause once you get people into that, it's like an each one teach one situation. So like
Yeah.
you teach someone else and they teach someone else and they teach someone else and it grows like that. So that's like one thing you can do. Another thing that you can do, you might not be in a situation to do like a proper Black Panther Party style, like you might want to serve the people, but you might not be in a situation to do like the full on like breakfast programs or this kind of thing, because that requires a lot of funding, a lot of time, a lot of resources. It can be quite resource heavy, quite difficult to manage. But there's loads and loads of charities out there that you can join up with, which is really, really important. You can literally join up with any other charity as your little group. Excuse me, if you're part of a communist organisation, you can definitely, like the Connolly Youth Movement here in Dublin would do this. We would work out with various charities, just like doing like I suppose like food drives, feeding the homeless people. There was like delivering gifts, like Christmas presents, just like that to people, like over Christmas, just like donations and stuff like that. Find like a local charity and see what they're doing and get involved there, and don't shy away from saying that you're a communist, that you're part of such and such an organization. Don't shy away from that. People need to hear this. There's that old saying, like there needs to be a communist on every committee, like in the country that you're in. We need to be absolutely everywhere and involved in every single community and spreading outwards from there. But get in there. I would also say maybe don't be too opportunistic about it. Don't go into a charity program like trying to sell your newspaper, which is literally what some of the... I'm not joking, some of the trots actually did that. They went to like they literally went to like one of these like soup kitchen places and were literally trying to sell fucking newspapers recently in a soup kitchen, like for feeding homeless people. And they were trying to sell.
Know your audience.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. And like taking pictures, like them like helping everybody, and then like, hey, look at how great we are. Ooh, buy our newspaper. Yeah. Just a fucking joke, like. So yeah, I suppose a little bit of subtlety, but just be there, be a good, reliable person. If you really, if maybe you don't have like a gang to team up with just yet, if you do, great. If you don't, then just put up like little. If you can, if you're able to, you can print out like a little piece of paper to say, I'm here if you want like help with shopping or something like that. Especially like with COVID, there's a lot of elderly people. There's people who are like in their 70s who might be immunocompromised, and if you're fit and healthy, then you could help them out. So put up, if you, like in your apartment block, in your housing estate, whatever it might be, just put up like a little poster around with like your number, just like with your number on it, and or your email or something that you're comfortable giving, and just saying like, look, if you need help with anything and whatever you're comfortable with doing, prepared to do, just put it there, and people will get in touch with you. They will know you as someone who's helping out the community. People will respect you. People will look to you as someone who knows their shit and is willing to go out of their way to help people. And the conversations will naturally come up as you're talking to them and as you're engaging with these people. It could be someone has a newborn baby and they're not able to get to the shops, so you go and do the shops for them. You go grab what they need, you bring it back to them, and you're gonna have conversations there with them, and that's kind of how you get people involved in this stuff. So like you want people to know you like in your communities as a good, reliable person. And so like really the opportunities are endless. I would say a really good thing to do for communists and socialists is to get involved in community and tenant organisations. If you're in Ireland, join up CATU, CATU, that's a Community Action Tenants Union. As we head into recession, it's going to be really important that we not only look at traditional labour organising with the workers' unions, but we also look at community and tenant organising. There's a lot of reasons for this, because work is becoming more and more difficult to come by. As we move further and further into the future, as we move forward, jobs are getting automated. So a lot more people are becoming unemployed as things go on, right? We're heading into a recession. That's going to cause jobs as well. That's going to cause shortages of work as well. This is going to cause a lot of problems as well. And as a result of this, we're not really going to have the option to organise in the workforce as much as we would have liked to historically. So getting into your community and tenants unions is really, really important for reaching people who otherwise might not be reachable. You can knock on anyone's door and try to get them involved in the communist movements, but those same people might not be involved in their labour union or something like that. And it's also a reality that I don't know how it is where you are, Tankie, but where I am, like in Ireland, just like the workers' movements since 1990, it's just been on the down. Like we brought in all this legislation in 1990 via the Industrial Relations Act, the 1990 Industrial Relations Act, which basically defanged workers. We can't do anything now. Like, you can't do strikes. The people who rose to prominence in the workers' unions are complete sellouts. They're just basically neoliberals. They're in bed with the bourgeoisie. They have no interest in helping out working class people. They're not socialists by any stretch of the words. And unfortunately, the workers' movement isn't really a viable path to socialism, just purely through the unions. I mean, like this kind of narrow economistic approach that, you know, Lenin would have warned us of in What's to Be Done, stuff like that. It's just not a viable path towards socialism in Ireland anyway, and probably in a lot of other places, I imagine. Even if it was, like, even if you had decent like union leaders and stuff like that, you need to look at like the numbers of people who are like even in unions. I don't know. I think in Ireland it's like something like 13% or something like that of people are actually in unions, of workers are in unions. You know, so that means like 87% of workers are not in these unions. So you can't reach 87% of workers. So how the hell are you going to do a revolution with only 13% of workers, and most of them who are already very much in this basically neoliberal social partnership bullshit? I don't know how it works with unions, whether there's more kind of radical unions where you are, but it's very I'm not even going to say social democratic. The unions over here are basically just neoliberal. They're basically neoliberal, and it's a fucking joke, you know. So
yeah, I mean, there was right to work. That was like a big thing that like the Tea Party pushed. And it's like right now in the United States, there's less, from the last time I read the metric, there's less people in unions now than during the beginning of the Great Depression, when unions were largely illegal. Yeah. So I mean, that's crazy. There's union membership has drastically dropped. It depends on the union. There's some really good unions who are doing amazing work and, you know, all this stuff. But then there's some other unions who, you talk about like reactionary union stances, or consistently standing with reactionary causes, or standing with the, you know, neoliberalism. So it's really like kind of a mixed bag in the United States, but it's a smaller and smaller mixed bag because there's less and less people in unions, just because now people in union workplaces, they don't have to join the union, quote unquote, which usually means that they're not offered to join the union. Yeah. They're hired outside of the union, and then they just take the jobs of union workers. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a union struggle in the United States still. It's harder, more narrow, and like I said, it's a kind of a mixed bag depending on the union.
Jesus, that's fucking bleak, isn't it? You have the same thing as well. the right not to join a union. Thank I know, goodness. Right? Fucking right not to join a union. The unions won't get to us. Great.
It's such a capitalistic framing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
It's like you're being forced to join the union.
The unions are preying on you, you know, you poor worker. Let your boss save you from the clutches of these mean unions who want to get you better wages and secure your working hours, like, for fuck's sake.
It's ass backwards. Everything like, not everything, I don't want to be too bleak, but a lot of things in the United States are ass backwards. The whole COVID thing. I hate to come back to COVID thing, but it's fucking ass backwards. The whole idea of like freedom. I have this discussion with so many people. They're like, we couldn't do what China did because we have freedom in the United States. Like, what fucking freedom? What are you talking about?
Freedom,
we have
for the bourgeoisie.
Like, what the fuck do you mean?
Yeah,
like, you're literally arguing we should just die of COVID. Like, that's the freedom that you're worried about losing? What a fucking absurd freedom.
What the fuck? Oh my god, the capitalist hegemony runs deep, I suppose. Yeah, everywhere. It's not just the US, you know. Unfortunately. Yeah. Actually, related to this, Quindy asked, what should we do in 2021 to strengthen the socialist movement, both online and in real life?
Serve the people, man. Yes. Get out there, get out there and work. And I guess online, I don't know. Dude,
stay off Twitter.
Like,
stay off Twitter.
Yeah, stay off. There you go. Like, I don't know. As far as online goes, I think it's a little bit more of a distraction, though. It's good to, I don't know, expose people who wouldn't otherwise be exposed to it. This is something I think with exposing people who wouldn't have been exposed to it. Makes me think of mutual aid. So I'm formerly a houseless person, not for a huge amount of time, but for a couple of years. And one of the things I think about is, well, first, I had to talk about this in the last stream. I was in multiple unions and never once heard anything about socialism. And then as a houseless person, mutual aid would have been like just having people who I saw from the community who were trying to help me out when I needed help, who also happened to be socialists. I would have been so open to that discussion. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And people weren't like, that wasn't happening in my community. So I feel like on top of, yes, the internet, because I was exposed to, these ideas, these Marxist-Leninist ideas online originally. Like when I first was exposed to them, it was largely reading things online. But that doesn't have to be the case. Get out there in your community and be vocal, and do what you're doing. Serve the community and be open about who you are as a Marxist-Leninist. And the community is going to be open to it. If they start people say in the United States, everyone's scared of the word socialism. Yeah, but if they start associating socialism with the group that fucking feeds the community and fucking works with the community and fights with the community, then all of a sudden socialism isn't so scary. The word socialism isn't a scary thing. And it could be the same thing on an individual level of talking with your family or talking with your friends. Yeah, people are afraid of socialism until it's their best friend that they've known forever. And then that's socialism, because you get to define what socialism is. Socialism is the working class. Define it.
Absolutely.
We can define the word. And so, yeah, that comes to mind as far as what we should do in 2021. Get out there and work as much as you can with COVID. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. There's this giant catch-22 where things are getting worse, but everyone is understandably hesitant to get in big groups of people and do something about it. And I'm waiting to see if the vaccine works or whatever the fuck happens eventually when the COVID crazy, when it fucking starts to end. I'm interested to see what happens, because I can't speak for anywhere else. In the United States, it has been a non-stop fucking armed robbery of the working class since the fucking very beginning, putting trillions of taxpayer dollars in bailouts for multinational corporations, in the fucking stock market to prop the stock market up, while giving working people fucking pennies. And during the bailout in 2008, they've done like 6 of those since March. I might be exaggerating slightly, but they've done like multiple bailouts, quote unquote bailouts, by taking taxpayer money and putting it back into the pockets of the bourgeoisie and the imperialists. And I'm waiting to see if there's a blowback once that blowback can take place. Because right now, like I said, everyone's nervous. And understandably, I mean, I was going out and getting signatures for something called CFIST, which is to get, to call in the governor. Because in the United States, the governors in different states have crazy amounts of power. They could fucking sign a thing today and release all of the prisoners. Jesus. That's it. One signature, they release all of the fucking prisoners. So I'm going out getting signatures to release victims of police torture, and and during COVID, being in prison is fucking torture right now. Like, being locked up is torture. People are fucking dying of COVID and they don't have clean water and all this shit. Anyway, so I was out there getting signatures, and all that shit had to stop, because I mean, right now there's fucking, like I said, there's like 4,000 or 5,000 COVID cases a day, over 100 fucking COVID deaths a day. So it's not safe to be out like that. And people who are walking by you know that it's not safe to come by you. And if they're really excited to come by you during all of this, then they're probably not going to want to sign, because they're going to be someone who thinks like COVID is a fucking myth, and probably is going to be like, prisoners should be killed or something crazy reactionary. But yeah, so right now is a tricky time. So I'm waiting to see. I hope and I suspect that once it becomes a little bit more under control, that there's going to be a blowback to what's been going on, because it would be shocking if there wasn't. I mean, people are fighting over $600 a person. We bailed out the fucking airlines twice. And the first time we told the airlines, don't lay anyone off. That's a contingent part of your fucking bailout. And then they laid off thousands of people, and then we bailed them out again. So I don't know. We should have called this stream like a sad time New Year's Eve or some shit.
Sad
were you excited for New Year's Eve? Welcome to the sad stuff.
Fuck you.
Things are terrible.
We still live in capitalism. Fuck this. Actually, that leads in pretty nicely to the next one, because Social Swan asked us, what's your, and Tankie's highlights of this year. Some positive vibes. He actually said some positive vibes. And this is a while ago. This is before we went on our fucking sad rants.
Nice. I don't know. Look, the uprising during the summer was, even though it was filled with police fucking counter protesters attacking protesters, people did come together, and there were some real action by the working class, even if that action was more romantic than I wish it was. It's undeniable to say that there was a massive uprising. You know what I mean? That's positive. There's been small examples of communities coming together, but I saw that there was a cop going to evict someone, and the community fought the police out of the fucking apartment complex.
That's class.
Yeah, that's fucking amazing. I know that I read earlier that, I want to say this was in LA, that there were homeless people setting up shop in vacant houses and then refusing to leave. I think that that's an amazing thing to have happen and should continue to happen, and those communities should defend those people. Yeah, those are all good things. Yeah, we can be positive about those and optimistic about those, definitely.
Shit, what was some good stuff that happened on my end this year? This evening, this year will end. That is the best thing about this year.
Well, let's go into international stuff. I think that it's positive that China. Look, I think I was talking about this the other day, yesterday online. If there's a general winner of 2020, it is fucking China.
Oh,
China
yeah,
won
they killed it.
Every conceivable metric in 2020, and that's positive. It's
Yeah,
positive that the U.S. is declining and China is ascending. Fucking Maduro and the working party in Venezuela has managed to survive fucking conceded coup attempts.
Oh yeah. Bolivia, yeah. Evo Morales got back in. Well, not Evo Morales, but basically Evo Morales.
Yeah, exactly. The Party for Socialism. Yeah. So that, I mean, like, internationally, there's been great stuff, and I would say locally, there's been great stuff. There's been a bunch of not great stuff, but there's been some good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the highlights, I think. Definitely. Yeah, that moment when MAS came back in, MAS in Bolivia, there was a lot of hope there. There was a lot of feeling optimistic. But I'm still skeptical. I'm still skeptical of the projects that they're engaged in, the Democratic Socialist projects. You know, but they're kind of, in some ways, charting out. It's kind of like New Horizons in a way. I mean, because in terms of like democratic socialism, like the best example, like the furthest example that we've ever gotten with that is basically Allende in Chile, and we know how that went. And it ended up in Pinochet, of course. It ended up in a semi-fascist dictatorship for decades. So. Because unfortunately democratic socialism isn't capable of defending its gains. I mean, what can you do? Where can it actually go? You know, can it actually lead to a dictatorship of the proletariat? Can it actually lead to socialism? I don't think so. It can definitely improve the lives of the people living in there, and it can definitely be sort of a foothold against imperialism, Western imperialism. You know, I think that's useful, and that's positive and very, very progressive. But yeah, I think we need to go further.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is, you know, I think that if anything, I don't know. I think I support what they're on the ground and, you know, experiencing their own material conditions. So they're obviously in an incredibly tricky position.
Yeah.
Just in general, with the Monroe Doctrine and being so close in proximity to the U.S. and
that's right.
having such a history and having such an ingrained part of their political system be, I don't know, compradors for the U.S. and the U.S.'s interests. Their struggle has to be, you know, there has to be their struggle. And when the material conditions change in the United States, that will undoubtedly affect the material conditions in all of this, most South American countries, just because of their proximity to U.S. imperialism and the, you know, very recent history of the most brutal forms of imperialism.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Latin America's just been ravaged by U.S. imperialism. So, you know, actually, there's this thing where, you know, people often just say, like, social democracy is objectively, you know, just the left wing of fascism. And I think definitely in the Western world, in the imperialist cores, yeah, no doubt about it. Absolutely. A social democratic country in Europe or in, like, let's say, let's say if the US became social democratic, but it's still doing imperialism abroad, fuck that. I mean, you're still just fucking over everybody. That's earned on the backs of our comrades in the global south. You know, that's not actually progressive. That's just, I mean, it almost gets into some weird kind of like ethno-state territory where you're just supporting your own country and fuck everybody else. You know, so it's squirmy in the imperialist cause. You know, but in the global south, social democracy kind of is a different beast. You know, and it's kind of, I suppose we need to have a more nuanced perspective of it. I mean, it's definitely progressive. What we see, it's definitely progressive. Like, we can't we can't take away from their gains. I mean, come on.
It comes down to, like we were saying about self-determination. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't say in the United States and be like, no, I mean, Bolivia needs to immediately do X, Y, and Z, or they're reactionary and I don't support them. You know what I mean? Like, they're struggling, the MAS, which I'm sorry is the Movement for Socialism, if I'm not mistaken. They are actively struggling with the indigenous people. The majority of the party, if I'm not mistaken, is indigenous. And I know that Bolivia is one of the countries that has a pretty strong majority of indigenous people in general, indigenous Bolivians. So, yeah, I mean, they're struggling for self-determination, and it's amazing. Talk about something positive. A coup happened, and then the coup
I love that.
in 2020.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I mean, the DPRK developed a nuclear deterrent. I believe that happened in 2020. This year felt like it was 500 years and also 3 weeks at the same time.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if that happened in 2019 or not. But yeah, so that was positive. In China, they passed the defense bill for Hong Kong. So point being is they can't have outside money coming in funding secession groups in Hong Kong, and so that ended.
No more Ned.
That ended that shit, which was good. Lots of positive things happened in 2020. Let's be positive.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, let's be positive. Come on, let's do it. We can do this. Wait, another question from Socialist Swan, our positivity pal. Who do you want to get on the stream in the new year? You, definitely. Tankie Talk. You're coming back on, and I think in about 3 weeks. I think I'm having you back on. I think we've got let me see what date I've got you. The 22nd of January, you're returning, so that'll be fun as well. That'll be cool. And I think we can probably extend this to yours as well. I mean, Socialist One also asked any teasers on future topics. So I suppose we're talking about the channels now. Do you want to talk about like anything you have planned for your own channel and stuff that's coming up in the new year? Positive.
You all are assigning a little bit more pre-planning to what I do than actually.
You don't have the next 10 years planned out? What do you mean?
I don't have the next week planned out for my channel. I just usually read an article and I get really passionate and start yelling at myself about it. And I'm like, shit, turn the camera on. Like, I'm just going to yell about this thing that I just read about. So I have no idea. It kind of depends what happens. I'm sure there's going to be stuff going on with Biden taking office. I'm sure there's going to be more stuff with COVID, though I'm focusing a lot on that on my channel, and I'm trying to focus less on it because we only talk about it so many times before people get it. But yeah, so I don't know. Really, I have no idea. And everything I just said probably won't even end up being on the channel. It'll be something else, some other article I read.
Well, let's see. Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Exactly. How about you?
Let me see. Well, actually, a big one is that I'm working on a Socialism 101 course. Just like a series of. I've got about 60 planned at the moment. 60 just short 5-minute videos going all the way. There's going to be like a beginner's like 101 course, an intermediate like 201 course, and an advanced 301 course, going all the way from the absolute basics of like what's communism, what's socialism, what's this, what's that, the basics of Marxism, all the way to much more, let's say, intermediate stuff, which is more like Leninism, getting into like imperialism, stuff like that, and then all the way into more advanced stuff where you're getting into like more ideological tendencies, getting more into like Maoism, Hojism, all these different kinds of tendencies, and Trotskyism and all this kind of stuff, and what the variances are and what the differences are. And so I've got this whole like course planned out, and I've been working on this for the last few weeks. I'm hoping to get started. I definitely want to start releasing the videos by the end of January, but maybe I'll have them done even sooner than that, maybe like even in the 3rd or 4th week of January. But I want them to be like a good quality. Have you ever seen Crash Course? Have you ever seen Crash Course on YouTube?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so you know, like they've got like short little snappy videos which introduce you to like a load of different topics. Now, I could never do anything like of that quality because I don't have like the animation skills. Like I wouldn't be able to do like that kind of stuff. You know, they've got like little characters and stuff like that. That'd be cool. But like I'd really love if there was like a communist crash course there that people could check out, and just like from absolute, assuming no prior knowledge beginners, all the way up to like full on modern day movements, modern day communist movements. What are people doing in the Philippines? What are people doing in, you know, what are people doing in India? You know, like what are people actually doing to build communism right now in 2020? Like all the way, like the whole thing, you know. And that's going to take probably, well, it's, I mean, if there's 60 videos and I'm releasing like one a week, I mean, that's over a year even to put that together, you know. So it's going to take a long time, but yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to release like one a week, starting sort of in the second half of January, and yeah, I think that's
awesome.
Well, I hope it'll be useful. I hope it'll be good. I am conscious of the fact that like I want these to be like really good quality. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever had this, like when you release a video and sometimes you're like, I could have done better. I could have changed this. I could have changed that. I've kind of come to terms with like, if these videos are incorrect, if it needs to be changed and updated because I learned something new, because someone corrects me, because there was actually, I didn't define such and such a term fully correctly, I'm actually going to go back and change it and like slot it in again and update it and like redo the video to make sure that it's like really top quality stuff, you know, and that I'm not like misleading people, you know, because I don't know everything. I'm not like some genius, but I'm going to do my best, and yeah, hopefully people will find it useful as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be fun. It'll be tough going. I'm probably going to have to ease back on the streams. And probably, rather than doing like 2 streams a week, I'll probably just go back to 1 stream a week, and it'll probably more just like hanging out stream, like what we're doing here. We're hanging out, we're talking communism, but you know, like a lot of the streams that I would do would be more kind of like podcasts where like I prepare for them. There'd be Google Docs. We'd have like a set conversational topic, and you know we'd talk about, you know, 5 topics, and we'd have instructions and conclusions, and you know I'd have written up notes beforehand, and you know I'd be basically like reading out a lot of them like on the stream live, very much a podcast format kind of thing. But I'd say probably the streams. Yeah, I mean they can be kind of useful, I suppose, and fleshing out ideas.
You have the stuff planned out that I can't do. That's awesome.
Well,
I look forward to watching those videos.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, you know, it's basically just titles for the videos that I have right now. It's basically just like little titles, you know. Yeah, this video will be about this video will be about that, this video will be about, you know.
I used to do videos like that, like like a Marxist-Leninist explains X or a Tankie explains X.
Yeah, they're great.
And that's good. I think it's one of those things with YouTube videos where you have to think about your audience, right? And I think that's what you're kind of getting at, is like, let's focus the audience on like newly radicalized people or people who are loosely interested in it. And then, you know, that way they can learn through that. I think that's great. That's awesome.
Well, I hope it lives up to the expectations. It's difficult, but the thing is, like, I really want to represent like the proper like Marxist-Leninist, and I suppose to a lesser extent like the Marxist-Leninist Maoist line as well. Like, I mean, like we all kind of follow in that tradition, like the Bolshevik line, like following on from the Bolshevik tradition, you know, because there's a lot of people. If you go onto YouTube right now and you type in what's communism, what is communism, you're gonna get like this, just the craziest stuff. Like you'll just get like a lot of right wingers saying it's the government taking your iPhone or something like that. You know, like yeah, it's like, okay, so communism is when no iPhones, and socialism is when some iPhones, and capitalism is when iPhones. That's the kind of shit that you get. You know, and I think that we really need to clarify what we mean. Not only against the conservatives and the right wingers and so on and so forth, like we actually need, even against other left wingers, because there are some people who will say, well, you know, socialism is when you've abolished the commodity farm or something like that, you know. And it's like, well, that's not exactly the Marxist-Leninist definition that we would go by. And you know, so we need to be educating people specifically in our tradition, rather than the left comms taking that, or rather than the Social Democrats taking that, or the liberals or the conservatives or whatever, you know. So there is kind of like there is kind of a lot of work to do from this kind of Bolshevik perspective, which I don't think has been done. I mean, if you just type in like what is communism into YouTube, you can't find a video that gives the proper Marxist-Leninist perspective on what communism is and what socialism is, and even really what capitalism is. So Yeah. And so yeah, I think that might be helpful for some people. I hope it's helpful. I hope it's not a big pile of shite and I end up like unlisting it later on. Which has happened.
Yeah, it's gonna be the New Year's stream next year. You're gonna be like, my biggest mistake was doing those videos.
What a fucking joke.
No, that's awesome. I think that's a great idea.
Well, let's see how it goes. I might have to consult you on some particular issues, and it's probably going to need to be more of like a collaborative effort because there's a lot of topics that we're going to be talking about, and I'm not a master on every single one of them. I have to do a lot of research, and I think I'm probably going to be reaching out to a lot of people to help seek answers to these things. So yeah, I'll be in touch.
Let me know, Comrade, if I could help. Just let me know.
Definitely. Cool. So thank you very much, Comrade, and thank you very much, Social Swan, for asking about those topics. It's cool. Dr. Doom asked a quick, short question for you. Who drew Tankie Talks? Tank. That's a fun one.
Google Images.
Google Images.
Yes, I got it from Google Images, and I just edited it enough on my own. I think, like I said, and I think it's great that so many people who like Marxists who have YouTube channels like what you were just saying, there's lots of planning going on, there's lots of work behind the scenes. That is like very not what I'm doing. That's why when people are like, "We have a YouTube channel," I'm like, "Yeah, kinda."
How you do? Come on, you're one of the rock stars. The rock stars of Tankie YouTube.
I'm trying to do more with it. If my more recent videos is more editing, and I'm trying to have a little bit more of a script after getting that suggestion for like 2 years. But yeah, I mean, what I do is pretty low effort, and I try to actually keep it like that specifically because I feel like, I mean, it's even more effort now that I'm reading actual news stories and commenting on them instead of just reading stuff, trying to memorize it in 2 seconds and then yelling about it to my camera. And
that was useful too, by the way.
Yeah, no, and that's what people seem to. The people who subscribe to that. So I don't want to go too far from that because people seem to like that, and at the same time, even though I look up to people who put a lot of effort into that, because what they're doing is undoubtedly more educational, I think, than what I'm doing. I think it takes all kinds, and maybe sometimes people just want to watch someone complain and scream and get angry, because that's kind of what I do.
Exactly.
And there's lots to be angry about, and that's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes people just want to get drunk.
Exactly. That's why, Comrade, you have to play. We have to do a 3-man stream. I'm not kidding about this. You have to do a 3-man stream, and we could all get drunk playing 3-man.
Hell yes, that sounds great. I look forward to that. That's one of the goals for 2021 now.
There you go. One of the goals. 3-man stream.
Hell yeah. Class. Thank you very much, Comrade. Geez, we've got loads of questions to get through. I've been putting them down in a little Google Doc to try and keep track of everything, but we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 questions to get through, and they're still coming in as well. Lucky number 13.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, time wise, how are you doing time wise? Do you need to head off at the 2 hour mark? Is that right?
Yeah, sometime around there. I could be a little, there's a little wiggle room.
A couple minutes, yeah, a little bit of wiggle room, but okay, yeah, we'll try to wrap this up in 35, 40 minutes. Oh, that's actually, with the amount of shite talking we do, I don't know if we're going to be able to.
You'll see.
We'll get through like 2 questions.
Speed round.
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll kind of quickly. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll speed round our way through these questions. What do you think about that? I apologize to people in the chat there if we're rushing through things. We're not having like the full shite talk conversations that you'd expect. But we want to get to everybody. We're communists. We want to treat everybody equally.
We can try to move through quickly. I don't know if that's going to work, but we can try. And like I said, I have wiggle room. I'm not like running away somewhere. I can't go anywhere. COVID is everywhere in the United States. So.
Yeah. Back to the doom and gloom. Fuck 2020. Exactly. Okay. Big Bad Skeptical Wolf asks, Paul Marin, quick question: would you ever make a video about El Salvadorian and Guatemalan civil war? Yes, that'd be really cool. I'd love to do that. I'd love to get someone on who's like an expert who knows a lot about this and talk about it and discuss it. I don't know that much about it myself, but I do research for that, and we get someone on stream about it and talk about it, and that'd be really cool. Another question related to that and linked to that is, and how American imperialism destroys proletarian revolutions like what happened in those places. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to talk about that. Comrade, if you know somebody, please get in touch. Send me a message on Twitter. And if there's like some expert maybe like in your party, in your organization, or just a comrade, a friend, or even yourself, please get in touch and we can make that happen. Okay, Alex asks, Paul Moran, in the States, is it possible, or we actually answered this one. We're good. Bring that down. 11 questions now. Here we go. Flying through them. Class. Here's one. The Falcone. I don't know how to pronounce it. Falcone General asks Paul Moran, what is Tankie Talk thoughts on forcing the vote? Any thoughts on forcing the vote?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing a video on this, but I didn't know if it was worth doing it. I don't know. I think there's look. The people who are saying I get to give some context. Force the vote is that some people are calling for people in the House, elected representatives in the House, to not vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker unless she agrees to do a floor vote on Medicare for all. And their logic is we know that it's not going to pass, but if we see who votes for it and votes against it, then we'll know who to vote out in 4 years. And I think that logic is kind of, I don't know, it's very electorally focused. I think it's funny that the radical position in that discussion is like, yeah, then in 4 years we can do something about it. And it's like, I don't agree with that. I could see it being a good, like, almost like agitprop thing, where it's like, obviously these people, and that's what they're saying, is like these people are going to vote against healthcare in the middle of a pandemic. And I think that would be better served for like trying to get some kind of movement moving to go against bourgeois state, more so than it is as an electoral strategy for 4 years. Because in the US we have really low memory, a really low memory span. People are going to forget about it in 4 years. And the bourgeois state has been letting people die. 300,000 plus people die over the last 9 months. They're not going to fucking care about saving face. But I think it's, for what they're saying they want to do, it's a good goal. Right? They say that they want to force people to either vote for or against healthcare, and that would help identify who's against it and would hurt those people. And I think that makes sense. It's just the entire electoral focus of it, to me, seems misguided and very liberal. But then also, I think it's ironic that the point of it is to put targets on the heads of people who don't want to vote for healthcare, but then the quote-unquote progressive caucus in the House is blocking it so hard that all it's doing is putting targets on their heads, which I think is really like symbolic of what these bourgeois politicians who claim to be progressive or claim to be for these things, the kind of the role they play, because all they're doing is they're being shields for the people who are going to vote against it by saying, no, we're not even going to do it. So I don't know. That's why I wasn't sure I was going to make a video, is because I think about it and it's like, I don't know if this is in my lane. It seems much more focused. I saw that Jimmy Dore, who's one of the people pushing it, was reading Lenin on his stream the other day, and that's cool. I'm all for that. So if this whole
Jimmy
thing
Dore
led
reading
Jimmy
Lenin,
Dore to being a Marxist-Leninist, I would fucking take that as a win.
That's fucking cool. That's really fucking cool, actually. Yeah. Jesus Christ. Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. So he was reading Imperialism. Good. So that's good.
Yeah, that is. It's great. Fucking hell. If there's one book that everybody needs to read, it's Imperialism. Genuinely. I mean, like, it's the one book that helps you really understand geopolitics, So brilliant. Thank you very much, comrade. Brilliant. Jennifer Esin, I can't pronounce that. I apologize. Esein says, Paul Moran, when are you going to have Hakeem back on as well? Still waiting on Luna Oi to come on as well. Hakeem is coming back on the stream and let me see. He's coming on the third or fourth week of February. So Hakeem will be back then. That's going to be great. Looking forward to that. Hakeem's always a lot of fun to talk to. Incredibly knowledgeable comrade. Still waiting on Luna Oi to come on as well. Luna Oi is probably one of my favorite people on the entire planet. She is just fucking great. I adore Luna Oi so much. So I'd absolutely love to have her on. But obviously, like, her and American are both like very busy. Like, they're really popular. They kind of they balance between like the kind of like the libertarian left space and the tanky space, and so like everybody loves them, so they get a lot of attention, and they don't have that much time because everybody wants to hang out with them, everybody wants to talk to them. So yeah, I can understand that they're a little bit busy and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely, if you're in contact with them, please let them know that I still want to hang out with them. I have reached out to them a couple of times, and they're always like, yeah, let's do it. But then I try to like pin down a date to get them on, and they're kind of like, oh well, maybe yeah, and it kind of just fizzles out from there. I think, to be honest, I think that one of the big issues is that because they're in Vietnam, the time zones make it really, really difficult. I'm like, okay, let's do like 7 p.m. Irish time, which is kind of like, I don't know, probably like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. like their time or something like that. So it kind of makes things pretty difficult. Yeah, so it's like it's really tough to kind of to navigate that in terms of like time zones and stuff. So yeah, that's probably like a really big factor in it, to be honest with you. I should probably try and loosen up and be more flexible with the times. But yeah, I definitely do. That's actually, Social Swan asked about people who I want to get on like in the new year. I would absolutely love to have Luna I on the stream, and also non-compete American Johnson. He's a really cool guy as well, so I'd like to talk to them. They're a lot of fun, and they're great. I love them. So yeah, here's a fun one now. Here's a fun one. You ready? Brace yourself for some fun.
Ready.
Nova Mac. Paul, how should we as socialists enjoy ourselves? Enjoy ourselves as Marxists. Jesus, do you remember the time when we used to enjoy ourselves? prior to Marxism.
Do all the normal stuff that people do to enjoy them. I see this all the time, and it's like, I was reading a thing yesterday. I guess Stalin, according to Stalin, when he was talking about this, his favorite author was Dostoevsky, but he also said he couldn't abide by his politics. And there was a quote, because somebody said his favorite actor was John Wayne or something like that, or that he liked John Wayne. But the actual quote, which I think is interesting, is that he called for John Wayne to be assassinated for having consistently anti-communist views, but that he liked his movies. So yeah, like, you can engage critically with, media. It's okay. Watch a movie.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Read a book.
That's a big thing, actually, when you have the clarity to know, okay, I'm watching CIA propaganda right now. This Marvel film I'm watching right now, CIA propaganda, literally in cahoots with the US military. Yeah. And once you know that, once you've already discovered that, and you go in with your eyes wide open, you're like, okay, cool, this is gonna be shit. And then you can enjoy it. Then you're free. You're open. You open up everything. You can have fun. It's not like you're kind of watching it and halfway through you're like, I don't know about this film. I think this film's trying to, propagandize me. I think there's something fucked up going on right now. If you don't know that what you're watching is going to be bourgeois propaganda, imperialist propaganda, then you're going to be like, I don't know if I can enjoy this. But if you know it, and you should, because basically everything is bourgeois propaganda under the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie.
Everything. So, I mean,
would you accept that?
I guess here, to have fun, create your own media stuff, and instead of being bourgeois propaganda, promote socialism and Marxist ideas in it, and then you can give it to other people to enjoy.
Fucking yeah! Sorry to bother you.
And
have you seen that? Have you seen Boots Riley's?
More socialist barbecues.
I love that. I just want a barbecue, man.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, BBQ pills. Absolutely. Yeah, if people haven't seen, by the way, Boots Riley's Sorry to Bother You is one of the best anti-capitalist films I've seen. He's a proper communist as well. I think he might have been Boots Riley. I think, what was he in, like the Workers' World Party, something like that?
I think so. I'm not positive what party he was in. I know he was in a rap group before, and their music is pretty cool too. I forget their name though.
Yeah, The Coup. They have that song, The Guillotine. We got the guillotine. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so fucking good. I listened to that. Do you know what? This is cringy. Actually, it's really funny. I'm such a cringy bastard. I'm like such a cringy. I tell like dad jokes all the time, and I always try to like suppress it, like when I'm on streams and stuff like that. But I'm such a cringy dad joke bastard. And after the stream yesterday, Deadman was just like, just lean into it, just be the fucking cringy dad. People like it. Have fun with it.
We should all. That's what I'm saying. More socialist barbecues. We need to go to actions with like folding chairs and a cooler full of like
cargo shorts.
Exactly, cargo shorts. We'll just yell like
I love them.
Like vaguely motivational things that have almost nothing to do with the situation at other comrades.
You can do it, kid.
Exactly. Good swing. You got it.
I'm flipping burgers. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
So yeah, yeah, every one of these streams, right? Every time I do a stream, 10 minutes before we start, we get the call set up at 10 minutes beforehand. But before that, I always listen to the Guillotine by The Coup.
Nice.
Every single time. It's like my let's go, we're gonna do communism. That's my communist song. And I you know what else? I also used to listen to it before when I was going into work, when I was like organizing the workplace, and I was like, whenever I'd have like a big confrontation like with the boss, or they'd ask me to hang back after work to talk to them, or there was like a staff meeting where I knew I was gonna have to speak up and lay down the socialist line, I'd always listen to that beforehand. Like, it's like the ultimate like motivational song, so Boots Riley, fucking hell, really helping out socialist movement through his art and stuff like that. So yeah, that's
at the same time, do whatever you enjoy doing. I mean, just be critical, just be critical about it. As long as you're critical about it, you can't, it's no one's saying to be a socialist you have to be a hapless person.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, before this, I was reading a book that I'm sure has some terror. Actually, I was reading a book called The Stranger, which is a postmodernist, absurdist that I completely ideologically disagree with, but that I think is a good book. So I mean, that's okay. Read good books, or watch good movies, or watch TV shows, and just be conscious that and for me, I'm such a contrarian. When I read stuff or watch stuff like that, I actually get more into it once I figure out what they're doing. Once I figure out the bourgeois propaganda element of it, I enjoy it even more, because then my entire thing becomes picking it apart, and that for me is fun. But I mean, if it's not fun for you, just watch it and keep in mind that they're trying to get you to believe something, because everything's political and every creator of anything is trying to get you to believe something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a thing as well. Everywhere, even like on YouTube, like left-wing YouTube, they're trying to get you. They're trying to trap you into their belief, whatever they believe.
Yeah,
they're trying to get you. We're trying to get
everybody has some kind of thing that they're trying to get. Or I mean, it just snowed here where I am. Go build a snowman.
Me too. It's shitty snow. It's like a centimeter off the ground, but yeah, like half an inch, I suppose, off the ground, and you can't make a snowman, but it snowed at least out the window. That's a nice 31st of December treat. So that's something to be positive about. That might be the highlight of the year, actually.
There you go. What was the highlight of the year? Snow that happened.
Half an inch, centimeter of snow. Yeah.
Exactly. And what I mean, like, Fidel was a baseball player.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Stalin was an avid reader and liked poetry and stuff. I mean, so fucking have fun. You can have fun.
Enjoy.
Whatever. I feel like it's funny. Like, how do you think socialists should have fun? And we're just like, have fun. I don't fucking know.
Get drunk. Drink, have fun. It's the I don't know, the solution to all of life's problems, as one comrade once said. So thank you very much. I appreciate that response. I hope that answers the question, Comrade Novar Mac. I hope you're having fun, enjoying yourself. I made a tweet like earlier this week, and I was just like, I should stop tweeting. I keep getting in trouble whenever I tweet. But I tweeted and I was just like, do you remember before you were a Marxist and you could actually enjoy things? And people actually took me seriously. I was like, oh shit, this is a joke. That was a fucking joke. You were meant to enjoy that joke, you motherfucker. That was nuts.
No. I mean, look, I get when people are like, oh, these things are problematic.
Yeah. And you realize it's capitalist propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. You realize it's capitalist propaganda, so then you're like, I don't know, I don't want to experience it, but it's like, we have to live in the world.
We live in capitalism.
Yeah, we have to deal with it. And as long as you're critical with it and you're not letting it, if you're not drinking its Kool-Aid, then you're fine. Whatever.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. Come here to me. I need to run to the bathroom, but there's a question for you here, which I think might be an interesting one to discuss. Kind of relating actually to some of the topics we were talking about a little bit earlier. River Euphrates, I think that's the pronunciation. What do you guys think the US left should specifically do to maintain and capitalize It says "he" in brackets, which is great. On on the radical wave earlier this year and into 2021, how do we maintain that enthusiasm and consciousness? So I suppose the uprising after George Floyd protests, how do we maintain that and moving forward? So I might run to the bathroom and I might let you take this. Is that okay with you?
Yep, that's great.
Cool. Okay, I'll be back in, well, however long it takes to pee.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you then.
Yes. So I don't know. This is a question bigger than me. I think that, look, we have to consolidate the gains that we've made as socialist movement in the United States. And I think that is going to be kind of promoting people joining organizations, and at the same time seeing individually with those people what part of the struggle they're in. Now, something that I like to think about is there's different kinds of mass work, right, that people are naturally inclined to take part in or that are most relevant to their individual struggle. And so it's hard to give like a prescriptive answer of like what exactly can we do. But what I do think is that as more people join socialist parties, that those people's individual, I don't know, proximity to certain parts of mass work can be utilized in ways that will inherently grow. Kind of like a feedback loop is what there's like a feedback loop of like one thing happens which causes more of another thing to happen, which causes more of the same thing to happen. It's kind of a big circle. And so what comes to my mind, at least in this, is, like I said, I think the big thing we should be doing is promoting joining organizations. I saw something online the other day where somebody said like every one of your heroes on the left, it doesn't matter if they're socialists, it doesn't matter if they're fucking anarchists, it doesn't matter what they are. They all were part of some organization. All right, they weren't just an individual hitting the streets on their own. They were part of an organization.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, I just said so. I'm back.
Nice. Yeah, so what I say to capitalize, like you're not capitalized to, I don't know, to continue the momentum. Firstly, capitalism is going to continue to give us things to continue that momentum. Like I said, just in the city that I live in, there's been just recently another example of fucking incredible police oversight, more police murders. All of these things are still going to continue to happen because that's what capitalism fucking does. And I think that the biggest thing that we should do is make sure that we're consolidating our gains, we're putting comrades to work in the community, that we're helping facilitate work within the community, and we're promoting people join organization. I think that's the big thing. One thing that we have to learn, the takeaway, I think, from the uprising is we can get things done with a romantic, spontaneous movement, but we need to be organized. If we're organized moving forward, then the next big thing that happens, if we're more organized, we'll be better suited to move forward in a more actionable way, I think. So join organizations, promote other people joining organizations, define what socialism is, and get in your community. That's what I am doing, and what I promote other people doing. Based.
I 100% agree. Get involved in the community, get involved in your communist organizations, your workers' organizations, or if that's not viable, then community and tenants organizations, unions, etc., and so on and so forth. Fucking absolutely. That's kind of a vague statement because I didn't hear the full extent of what you said, but I trust that it was very, very good. Yeah. I mean, the point of what I was saying is lots more people are joining socialist organizations now, and the parties have to work within. Everybody should be doing some kind of mass work that's in a party if they can. And the more people that join, those people are going to have individual proximity to different elements of mass work. And so the more people that join, the more mass work can be done, the more promotion, or the quote unquote promotion, the more visible the party is in the community, the more people that join, the more mass work can be done, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of this big feedback loop. And that's what we need to make sure that we're working with, is we don't want to take anyone for granted. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we're promoting people getting into the community and working in the community. Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree. 100% agree. Thank you very much, comrade. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Ian says, that's some audio. Holy hell, my ears, Paul. apologies, comrades. Let me know if the the audio levels sometimes go up and down. I apologize if it's no good. Let me know if you need me to shut the fuck up, lower down, increase the volume for someone else. Just let me know how it goes. We can change that. Another question now. So we talked a little bit about the US left. Okay, next one. Oh, that guy. What's your views on Brexit? That guy asks what your views are on Brexit. Do you have any thoughts on Brexit?
I don't know a lot about it. I know one of my buddies from, forever, that I've been friends with for a long time. He moved to England for work, and his perception was that it was a really right-wing position. From being there, but then I also read people on the left online who say that it's also, there's a left wing element to it. I don't know enough about it. I think I'm generally obviously against the EU, but other than those generalities, I don't know a lot of the specifics. I know that the right seems to be championing it. Obviously they got what they wanted.
Unfortunately, it was very much spearheaded by the right wing. Brexit is kind of one of those things where it's a very good thing that happened for a very bad reason. Like, I mean, it was really the right who sort of whipped up this kind of fear of the other, massive quotation marks there. It was very much a right wing thing, very much an anti-immigrant thing. It seems to be more about consolidating power. It's an inter-imperialist thing. Like, this isn't necessarily for the working class. This is an inter-imperialist war between the British imperialists, the UK imperialists, and the EU imperialists. It's an inter-imperialist issue, But the right sort of mobilised people on an anti-immigration ticket to make it happen, which makes it hugely a problematic issue. That being said, leaving the European Union, the dissolution of the European Union is fundamentally good and very, very, very good. We want to see EU imperialism fall. I mean, the EU is literally, it's basically just the German and French imperialism, like the German and French empire really together. There's an earlier stream on this channel about this if people aren't really aware of what EU imperialism entails, what we mean when we call the EU imperialists. You can have a little look. There's an earlier stream on this channel with Dave from Radical Reflections. We came on, we really took it apart and made the case for a left-wing exit from the European Union. But yeah, fundamentally, if you want socialism cannot happen while you are a member of the European Union. It's not possible. There's absolutely no way. It's against EU law. Even the modest pseudo-nationalizations that occurred for COVID-19, the laws had to be changed. EU law had to be changed to allow for basically the renting out from the states, like the public the public sector of like private hospitals within the European Union, within like in Ireland, in Spain, in a number of different countries. Basically, a lot of countries hired out, they rented out a load of like private hospitals, and people were like, oh, they've nationalized them, they've nationalized all the private health sector, but they didn't. They basically just rented them out, and now we're going to be left to pick up the bill. Like working people are going to be left to pick up the bill for the coming decades, really, but some people say, okay, the EU has problems. We understand that there are imperialist issues here, but can't we just reform it from within? Well, Syriza tried that. In Greece, they tried that. They tried to make it happen. You have people like Yanis Varoufakis. Like, I can never pronounce his second name, but Yanis anyway. You know what I'm talking about. Tried to do that. After many, many years of struggle, realised it's not possible. The EU is fundamentally unreformable. It's made to do a certain thing, and that certain thing that it's made to do is to serve capitalist imperialism and nothing else. It can never be made to serve socialist interests. It is asking the EU to do socialism is like asking fire to be cold. It's fundamentally not made to do that, It's an institution that's made... It's an international capitalist monopolist association. Basically, it's the fourth characteristic of Lenin's imperialism.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like it's asking a bourgeois state to be a socialist state.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
It can't happen. It can't happen.
it's an imperialist formation. Like, it has to be torn down to build socialism.
Exactly. It needs to be destroyed. You know, we need to destroy the bourgeois state in order to put in the new proletarian state. We need to destroy this EU association if we want to create a proletarian internationalist association, you know, which could be useful. But it's difficult because, you know, there's a lot of like center left people who see that the right wing really, they stirred up a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment. It was all about anti-immigration, and because we support immigrants, you know, we support people who were like immigrants coming into the country, you know, and stuff like that. We're 100% against racism. We're 100% against all these forms of discrimination that we see happening. They define their politics entirely in opposition to what the far right is, and the far right is championing Brexit. So they see themselves, okay, well, the far right is saying they want this. We are progressive and left-leaning, so we must be the opposite of that. We must support the EU.
My buddy who lived there, that's pretty much what I took from it. Is like he was like, I hear all this anti-immigration stuff, and I'm against that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, okay, so that's kind of, that was the dynamic I assumed was happening with him.
It is. It's exactly that, because you want to take such a strong stand against that, understandably, and you should. We should be 100% pro-immigrant. You know, we need to support our comrades from all over the world, 100%, no doubt about that. And actually, I should clarify on that question. There was another question, a couple questions later. Too Comfy asked, should MLs support immigration? I think Too Comfy might be a fascist. I am a little bit skeptical of this person. Moderators, please keep an eye on this person. If they fuck up, just kick them, just give them the boot, fuck that. But if they're not, then okay, just go easy, just take it easy. MLs should be supportive of immigrants, not immigration. Immigration as a system, like mass immigration, stuff like that, I mean, that's generally used kind of as a right-wing talking point. It's kind of a dog whistle, really. But basically, this is just freedom of capital to exploit people from all over the world, to import like labor from countries that's much cheaper, and it undercuts the labor in certain countries. And yeah, this can be an issue, but it's not necessarily the issue that it's made out to be. Like, for example, in Ireland, you have the fascists talking about how we have mass immigration, in massive like quotation marks. We don't. We've got 12% immigration. That's very, very normal. That's absolutely normal. If you want to talk about mass immigration, you can look at somewhere like Saudi Arabia, where they have like over 80%. 80% of the people living there are like, they've migrated from different countries to get there, you know. So when you start to approach those kind of levels, maybe you can start to say, oh, this is kind of a lot. But then, like, even then you need to like question, like, why is this like fundamentally like a problem, you know? Why is this an issue?
Is even a lot of that immigration is caused from imperialism.
Exactly.
I mean, we need to deal with it. And
why did this happen? Why are people being forced? Why are people being forced to move?
People don't want to, generally speaking, there's exceptions to the rule, but people generally don't want to leave their community or leave their home,
their families, their friends.
To be treated like shit in another country.
Exactly.
That's happening because of imperialist plunder and imperialist destruction around the world. And those people, like I said, I used to drive trucks, and I heard this fucking talking point so many motherfucking times, and it is so frustrating to me, where people are like, the trucking industry is dying because Mexicans are coming in and they're illegal, so they don't even have driver's licenses, so they're not worried about breaking the law, so they'll do things that no one else will do because they don't care. And that's a fucking, I looked it up, I researched it, it's a fucking lie. It's a goddamn lie. The trucking industry is an example of some time of a time where this discussion came into play. The trucking industry in the United States is dying because A, unions are disappearing, and B, the technology is becoming obsolete. They're getting ready to fucking get rid of truck drivers because they're going to have fucking automated truck drivers and automated deliveries. And it's sad to see people who are hard working class people be so easily swayed to attack other hard working class people when it's their boss that's fucking them over. Clearly,
like exactly.
If you just research, it's like, that's not the Mexican driver's fault who left Mexico because the fucking NAFTA destroyed Mexico's farming industry. So there was massive people who had been farmers for fucking generations had to come to the United States and look for work because we started exporting our fucking our food down to Mexico. it's the fault of the bosses who are trying to pay you less and use any excuse they can to give you less and take more. Like, that's the problem.
Exactly.
And when it comes to this discussion of immigration or versus immigrants, I think it's really splitting hairs and it's unnecessary. As working class people, we're supporting the working class, and those people who are coming across the border are working class, and the drive to, I don't know, villainize them, to me is it's I don't know, it's carnival barking. It's reactionary.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
It's just a way to turn the conversation reactionary.
It's absolutely disgusting. Yeah, 100%. And as you said, we do understand that, like, we don't want people to have to leave their homes. You know, we want people to be like, they can be with their families, they can be with their friends if they want to. But we don't want people to feel like, because of imperialist plunder, there's no jobs in an area, like all of the resources of a certain country are gone because it's through colonization has been extracted by the US or by some European power, imperialist power. But at the same time, we need to support workers. We need to support workers' rights. And that's why I would generally say, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm pro-immigration, because that could be taken as being supporting the imperialist system and the way that it's exploiting workers all over the world. But I would definitely say I'm pro-immigrant. You know, I'm definitely not anti-immigration, but I'm pro-immigrant, you know, and I think that that's probably a useful line to draw. You know, you don't need to buy into the kind of into this idea. Like, liberals will say we're pro-immigration, conservatives will say we're anti-immigration, and reactionaries will say anti-immigration as well. But yeah, you can be pro-immigrant, you can support the workers, you can support your class, and we should, you know. I think that's really, really important. Actually, Martin Barakov came on a few weeks ago, and he and I talked about the question, this exact question, immigration, and how communists and socialists should approach this. So if anyone's curious about that, go ahead and check that out. We talked about this for, you know, a couple hours in a lot of detail, a lot of depth, and we weren't just drunk talking off the cuff. We'd done our research and stuff like that, so that's probably a better reference point for anyone who wants to have a bit more of a fleshed out take on it. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. You'll find it on this channel from a few weeks ago. So yeah. Thank you very much, comrade. Now here's one for you. The Falcon General asks, what is Tankie Talk's thoughts about the Green Party USA? Green Party USA, that's an interesting one. They're kind of, they say they're anti-capitalist and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be some good people in the party. Like, I think Ajamu Baraka is an interesting figure, and he seems to be doing good work. Just as someone who's kind of nationally known, because he ran on the ticket in 2016. Howie Newsom? I'm not sure of this guy's name. Howie something, who was their candidate this time, had some troubling positions on Syria that I disagree with. And generally speaking, I think the Green New Deal, because it doesn't deal with imperialism, it kind of, it's like a green imperialist piece of legislation.
Yeah.
I promote people joining Marxist-Leninist parties, I guess. Breaking the two-party duopoly in the United States would be a positive thing. I don't know if the Green Party is poised or positioned necessarily to do that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not against them. Usually when people are like, I support the Green Party, I'm usually like, join a socialist party, because the Green Party is still a liberal party for the most part. They call themselves eco-socialists, but like I said, it doesn't seem like,
doesn't mean anything,
like
really.
They're using the word socialist like a liberal, like a social democratic thing.
Bernie.
Every now and again, I'll run into somebody who's like a Marxist or a Marxist-Leninist who supports them. But usually, when people are like, "Oh, the Green Party," I'm like, "Yeah, Marxist-Leninist parties. Join a party. You know, don't join the Green Party." That's my thing. But if people vote, I don't really care. I don't think voting does a whole lot. So.
Yeah. No, you're dead right. Now here's actually there's another question kind of related to like voting and stuff like that, which maybe we'll take now because it's related. Nikolai Bagrin asked Paul Maron, would you run for TD? So, you know, would you run for office, MP? I think in the UK. I'm not sure like if it's like a senator in the US, but whatever your political representatives are, like if you'd run for like a council or something like that. Would you ever run for like a position within the parliamentary democratic system?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, probably not. I don't know. I don't think that bourgeois politicians. I don't know. There's two like conflicting thoughts where some people are like they have so much power but they don't use any of it, and then some people are like they don't have any power and the system's just so broken. And either way, they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And I some local like aldermen, like on community levels, who seem to be trying to do positive things. But once you get above there, I think that I don't see anyone doing much positive.
Yeah.
And definitely when it comes to like when we're talking about like social democracy in the imperialist core being kind of an extension of imperialism, I don't see people, especially in the U.S., doing anything about that. Even the most ardent social democrat, like Bernie Sanders, an ardent social democrat in the U.S., has like this gigantic fucking whatever, half the globe blind spot when it comes to imperialism.
That's right. Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't. And also, I don't know if I want people digging around. I had like a little bit of a sketchy past when I was like young with the law, so I don't know if I'd want that getting around in.
Everybody's really Googling now. Tankie exactly. Sketchy past.
But I mean, and then again, I think it would be cool to have a Marxist-Leninist voice. Like I know this is like a fantasy, but it would be really cool to have a Marxist-Leninist voice in the Senate just to show liberals what actual opposition looks like. Because people be like, oh, Kamala Harris, she's fighting against the Republicans, and then a video comes out of her like high-fiving fucking Graham on the floor on the day that he voted against giving people fucking any kind of any kind of unemployment benefits. And it's like, just seeing an actual Marxist-Leninist in the government to like fucking actually scream at these people and tell them how it's like would be very cathartic, you know. But
beautiful, yeah.
I don't think that they would do much, and I think that the state would probably. I mean, if there was anyone who was a real threat to the imperialist state, I think the imperialist state would probably just kill them.
Yeah, definitely.
But maybe I'm being conspiratorial there. I don't know. How about you? Would you run for office? I don't know.
The question was TD, if I'd run for TD. I mean, so that's actually in the Dáil, which is like basically just Irish government, like national governments. I don't really recognise the Irish government as a legitimate institution, a legitimate, free and independent state. I mean, it's basically just a comprador bourgeois state for the UK. I don't actually fully like we call it the Free State. Like Republicans would call it like the Free State. So if I ever did run, it would be as an abstentionist. I could never participate in that system. It would be very much to leave that seat empty.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd probably not, but maybe as like as part of like a recruitment drive for my organization, like for a communist organization, just as a recruitment thing, because obviously, you know, if you run for a position, like lots of people are gonna want to like interview you and like get you on, like talk about you like in a magazine or newspaper or stuff like that. So like, a lot of people are going to talk about it. They're going to see you around and they're going to say, well, who's this guy? Who's this fucking communist? Like, here's someone that's actually calling himself a communist. Who are they? What are they about? And they might find out more about the organization. Maybe kind of like, I suppose, like what Christopher Hillali did with PCUSA, maybe something like that. But I don't think so. I would consider maybe council, like working on like the councils, like the local councils, like so local government, like just like for my area, for talent and stuff like that. I think that would probably be fine. But I also don't think that I'd be a great person for it, because they just see me on here just saying the most ludicrous communist stuff on YouTube that I would be never ever be fit for government. So
that's the thing too. Like, I'm not very tactful.
No, me neither.
Like, we had a debate.
Fucking dad jokes.
Like, what about blah 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 blah? And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up, you dickbag. It's just like, what is this parliamentary language, unparliamentary language that you're using here? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Probably not. I would say, like you, probably not.
Yeah, I don't think it would be my thing. But I mean, I don't know. I think engaging with the non-class conscious working class is good.
Oh, so I mean,
fine. I guess somebody sees that as a vehicle for that, as long as they are cognizant of the. I mean, it's kind of similar to what you were saying, where the bourgeois state in the United States is created to do one thing, and that one thing is not serve the interests of the working class. So I mean, no matter, you could elect a full fucking Senate full of fucking the most radical people in the world, and the state is still going to function the way it functions, because that's how the state is built to function. So it's not like you can't vote your way out of capitalism.
Yeah, this is it exactly. And you can get very distracted, and like I really do think that bourgeois parliamentary politics is not getting us anywhere. So if you are going to sort of play with that beast, you need to be very careful. You need to have a very clear strategy. Like, you're doing this for a certain purpose. You're not just kind of like, well, I'll engage with this and maybe I'll get a seat and maybe we can do some cool stuff from the inside. No, fuck that. If you like, when you start thinking that, then that can grow. You know, I've seen this happen with other socialist organizations where they get into parliament, they get into the Dáil Éireann, and then they realize, oh, they're getting all this money, they're getting this money now, they're getting paid, they've got a few people, they've got 3 people, each of them's getting a salary of 80,000, 90,000 euro, and with that money they can fund like 4 people. They can just basically pass it on, like, let's say one part-time salary for one person, and then 3 other people can basically be kept going and have a pretty good life, almost like a minimum wage kind of salary, and those people can be basically full-time revolutionaries. And you think that's great, you're like, wow, look at the amount of people I can fund to do this communist work now all the time. But then you're like, oh wait, shit, now I'm dependent on this money, and if I want to keep getting this money, then I need to get my guy elected again. And so all of my work now needs to go back into getting my guy elected and getting him back into the government and into the Dáil, and then that's it, they got you, you're trapped, and you're in the bourgeois parliamentary system and you're not getting anything done.
And this is a good discussion. In the US, you don't even have a parliamentary system. We have
that's right,
so it's even worse. But it's I think this is an interesting discussion about class interests, because people have this discussion about cops or about like troops and things like that, and it's about class interests. People are like, well, they're this, or, you know, people, why couldn't people in public office just push? I mean, like I was saying, a governor today could just sign a piece of paper and release everybody from fucking state prison. We have more people in prison in the United States than anywhere else in the world. The majority of them are in state prisons. A governor could release all of them tomorrow. A governor can declare a national holiday and close everything down. Tomorrow could be like, it's going to be, I don't know, well, tomorrow is a holiday, but whatever. Yeah. 2 days from now, they could be like, it's going to be a week holiday. Everyone's off for a fucking week. And they can issue stimulus checks and they can issue direct payments to citizens. So they could technically be like, we're going to give everyone 5,000 tax dollars back, and no one's going to work for the next fucking month. And I'm calling everybody to go to the White House and burn it down. You know, like, they could do shit like that. They don't do shit like that because their class interest doesn't fucking, why would they do that? They're making money from the way things are. I think that's the funniest thing, especially in the United States, where people are like, the bourgeois state, the elected people, they care about us. And it's like, why do you think that? Can you, like, or the Democrats are going to get money out of politics? Why the fuck would they do that? They're becoming fucking millionaires. Think of the things that you would do as an individual, listeners, if somebody came up to you and said, I'll give you $1 million to do X. That X is going to be a pretty wide swath of things most people would do, because most people are living in fucking paycheck to paycheck, if not worse than that at this point. And so their class interests lead them to act counter to our interests, because their interests aren't our interests. Their interests are to fucking keep things terrible for us, because that's how they make money. Like, I think, and being elected to office, like you were saying, you're elected and now you're making all this money. And you're like, well, people think, like, well, I can do so much with that money that would be positive for the working class. And it's like, yeah, but now you're dependent on that money. Like, you want that money because you're getting that money. I don't know. The whole thing it's frustrating, and I think it's really rooted in that class interest. And the same thing with police. People are like, well, police don't make that much money necessarily. It's like, yeah, but their job is dependent on enforcing the laws the state writes, and the state writes laws against us.
That's right.
Their entire job is to be the foot soldiers of the imperialists. And the same thing with, it's like, troops make more money with war. Troops, their entire career is based on imperialism. Their class interest is different than the rest of us. Our interests don't have anything to do. We don't get anything from fucking imperialism, but the troops directly do. So, I mean, class interest. Yeah.
What do you think of like former troops? Do you think that there can be, because there's like all these examples of people who were troops, and as they were in such and such a place, whether that was Iraq or going back to like Vietnam or wherever it might be, they get there, they're sort of raised to think like, oh, you're going to be a soldier, you're going to be a hero for the country, you'll get this soldier's funeral, you'll be buried here, look at these prestigious graveyards, you'll have this, it's going to be great. Like, we sort of build up soldiers within these empires, and then they go there, and a lot of these people are just like, wow, this is unbelievably fucked up what we're doing here. and then they come back
Yeah.
like really radical and really like against it and really like part of like these anti-war movements and stuff like that. Which, because some people will say like, oh well, this person used to be a troop, this person used to be a soldier, or as well, this person used to be a cop like for the US state. So fuck them basically forever. What do you think? I see a lot of anarchists as well, a lot of anarchists and a lot of liberals with this kind of take, a lot of left liberals with this take. What's your perspective on that? Like for someone who's like a former state trooper, state actor enforcing the law of the state and the rule of the state. What do you think of that? Can they be part of our like communist parties or our movements? And what are your thoughts?
I think they can. It's kind of a double. I mean, everything is going to be a little bit nuanced. Firstly, to be completely transparent, I was in the military.
There you go. This
is what I'll say, and that's not
and you're
just
communist.
To say, I am, and I wouldn't say that this is to say that you should, listeners, please do not trust every fucking veteran who all of a sudden starts talking radical. And this is why I think it's like a weird is on the one hand, I think that the first step has to be complete fucking self-criticism. Anyone who starts the discussion by saying an excuse or saying that they get treated unfairly because of it is fucking a huge, gigantic fucking red flag that they have not really dealt with what would happen. I was fucking wrong. So, I mean, I want to leave it. I was fucking wrong and I shouldn't have done it. And it was terrible, worst decision. But then the other side of it that I think is important is who the focus of the multinational communist party should be. And I think that it really depends on what people are comfortable with within that party's context, right? I'll see people who are like, as a colonized person, I'm not comfortable with this. And I think that those people's voices should be louder than veterans' voices. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
But at the same time, of course, people can change, and the predatory system that exists preys on people. So if there's actual self-criticism, which doesn't come from a place of like excuses and trying to get the responsibility away from them, then yes, people can grow and change and be allies and be comrades, etc. But I think that people should, like how it is, as someone who is a former person in the military, as a vet, I don't trust 99% of vets. Like in here, the people that I've met, knowing the people I've met, I don't trust. If someone says they're a vet, I immediately don't usually trust them unless they give me a reason to trust them and prove that they can be trusted. And I think that that is a good position to be with. People can prove that you can trust them. I'm not saying don't let people prove that, but people should should raise their eyebrow a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think both sides get a little bit hyperbolic. Though I rarely see one side who's like, all vets are good. I don't think I've ever. But the side that, I think that it can be done. I think that it's rare. And to be clear, the structure in the United States of the U.S. military is set up to create reactionaries, not just get reactionaries, but create them in the military.
Wow.
The entire structure is racist. As someone who has been through it, it is racist. It is dehumanizing to the enemy, which always is going to be othered as a race, especially right now in the Middle East, is very othered. And yeah, so that's what I would say.
Wow, that's really powerful. Thank you very much for the insight on that. I didn't realize that there was. I didn't think it through, I suppose. I mean, like now thinking about it, like obviously it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you got people working in the military, they need to be ideologically trained as well as physically trained, to exact their policies, to carry out the imperialist agenda. But I hadn't realized quite the extent of it. But obviously, like it needs to be, and like the people need to be trained in that particular way to be reactionaries, to exert such reactionary forces all over the world. Actually, Jennifer Eisen in the chat here asked something related to this. Can you ask him if there is a way? Can you ask Tankie Dog if there's a way, or if it's possible to convert people currently in the military to communism? We would kind of need them for the coming communist revolution. Any thoughts on how to convert military people?
Like I've had other people say this, and who they're like, I think that this is a viable path forward, is radicalizing active duty military people. And as someone who is engaged in length with active duty military people, like I said, it comes down to a lot of class interests, because you'll get people who will agree with you when you talk about you know, socialism and explaining the concept of, all these, Marxist concepts. But then it comes down to they're like, well, yeah, but I need to keep making my money, and I'm making my money like this.
It's true.
And that is a gigantic hurdle to get through, on top of the fact that, like I said, and this is one of the things that honestly pushed me to Marxism-Leninism, because Marxism-Leninism, when I, as a baby Marxist, assessed the terrain of the left, was like, Marxism-Leninism is the only ideology that I see that's militant enough to deal with the kind of shit that's going on in the military. The military, their goal is to brainwash you. That's like what they do, is they try to brainwash you so that you will murder whoever they tell you to murder without thinking about it. And so is it possible? Maybe. I would say the way that the U.S. is set up, it'd be very difficult. People like to refer to like the USSR as how they radicalized troops, and that was like one of the ways that helped them in their revolution. But the difference is the USSR had an incredibly strict consignment system, like a draft, pretty much. And it lasted for I want to say it lasted for like 12 years or something like that. It was an incredibly long draft. And so those people who often were poor because you could buy your way out of the draft, and the people who ended up being stuck in the draft usually were the poor people who couldn't afford to buy their way out of it. Those people were more inclined to be against the system they were in because they didn't join it voluntarily. And the system kept them there so long that there was not much of a light at the end of the tunnel. They were probably going to die in the military. In the U.S., with shorter term that you're in, a shorter contract, and the fact that even though, like I said, statistics can be funny about this, but even though generally speaking, people in the military are from middle to lower middle class, so those people usually are brainwashed in, and it takes a lot of deprogramming. Like I'm saying, like I didn't like get out of the fucking military and immediately became radicalized. Like I had to deal with a lot of fucking shit in my brain to get myself to stop thinking about things a certain way. Yeah. Even if those were, I was always skeptical when I was in, but that's its own little can of worms. And I talked about this before. One of the big things that like super radicalized me was learning about the Palestinian struggle. Was learning about what was going on there and being able to conceptualize it in a way that was relevant to me. And yeah, so my point is it possible to radicalize people who are in? Maybe, but as someone who actively has talked about socialism with people I know who are active duty, I would say that it's a fucking gigantic uphill battle that I don't think should be the main focus.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting take. How, in terms of like, if you're in the military, do you get a pretty decent salary? Like, can you have a pretty decent quality of life in the US?
So you're paid bad, but military bases are, like I said, it's all about brainwashing. Military bases are, they're like a little enclosed community inside a community, and people in the military they do like every job, So for example, like I never deployed. I never went overseas. I was in the United States the entire time, and I was a driver, so I did driving stuff on base. And so there's this entire community that isolates you in. So you get housing, you get healthcare, you get all this stuff on top of your shitty salary. But like I said, the point of all of that, I think, is less to give military people anything as much as it is to isolate military people from the working class and isolate military people from the rest of the community by locking them in this enclosed community where they normalized racism, literally murderous racism. Like literally murderous, like you need to go kill people for the imperialists.
Fucking hell.
And that's why, like I said, Marxism-Leninism, one of my big draws to it is like any structure that opposes organization and opposes strength through, I want to say, it's not like hierarchy specifically, but like a hierarchy that affords people who are good at something to be elected to a position, to have a louder voice on that something. Any ideology that opposes that, any section of the left that opposes that, is not going to be able to stand against U.S. imperialism. I can promise you. 100%. Because the people in the U.S. Army and the U.S. military are fucking trained to murder whoever they're told to murder. And if that becomes you, and you don't have an organized way to fight against that, then you're going to be murdered, because they're not going to think twice. You're not going to go put a fucking daisy in their gun and they're going to fucking fall to pieces. They're going to shoot you. Like that's what's going to happen. That's what they're trained to do. They've been brainwashed to do it. Yeah. There's a reason basic training is like no sleep and all this violent training. It's because they're programming you while you're at your most vulnerable to do whatever they tell you to do, which is usually kill people.
Jesus fucking Christ. It's so fucking, like, anytime I start thinking like the US military, and I think about how, like, what is it, 52% of the US budget goes to the military, and like I just think about that. I think about this. You're talking about how common and normal this experience is, and so many people are in it, how militarized the whole society is, and I just think about how fucked up the world is as a result of this. And fucking hell, it's bleak, isn't it? Just trying to think, like, and then you start, like, you compare that to, like, movementists who just kind of think, well, we can just have a few protests, we'll have a little spontaneous protest here, a little spontaneous protest there, and then we'll do socialism, everything will be cool, no big deal. We'll get Joe Biden in, and we're gonna be okay. We're gonna eventually move past capitalism, everything's gonna be grand. But why is all that money going into this military force? What are they going to do with that? What are those more than 800 bases all over the world going to do? Like, where's this going? Where does this lead to? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for us, And as you said, ML. This is where the old Bolshevik line comes in. A properly militant and organized working class that are able to defend, not only just have a revolution, but defend that revolution.
Exactly, because like I said, it's not a game, and I feel like maybe in recent years more than in years past, in the United States anyway, I think people sometimes think about it as a little bit of a game, where they're like, I'm against U.S. imperialism, and I'm against this, or I'm against this. Like, anarchists aren't even against necessarily imperialism, depending on the anarchists, but they're like, I want to do this, I want to get rid of the state, and they don't understand, like, because people say, like, free speech, like, you could say it until it becomes an actual risk to the state, and then they're gonna, and then, like I said, the role of the state is to ensure continued existence and supremacy, and the people who are fucking given guns and sent out to ensure that are fucking programmed to kill you. And so you need to have an actual structure, an actual way to combat that, and I don't see that happening with any kind of romanticism. The fucking bourgeois state would happily bomb the shit out of you and your comrades than they would to let you in any way risk their fucking supremacy.
Fucking hell. Yep, absolutely, and absolutely bleak. Fuck. So 2021, lots to look forward to. Come here to you, comrade. It's been over 2 hours. I've been keeping for over 2 hours. We're 20 minutes over time. I've got one last quick question for you, a fun question from one of the comrades here. The Partisan asked, Paul, simple question for a Tankie Talk. As a fellow Chicagoan, I don't know. Thoughts, real questions here. Thoughts on deep dish pizza?
It's amazing.
Yes.
And deep dish pizza is the pizza of the people because it's a whole meal. You can't have like some thin crust pizza. That's a snack. Okay, you gotta have deep dish. I like Luminati's. It's like mostly it's a lot of sauce. I like it. It's filling.
Yeah, we got like a brand here, Chicago Town in Dublin, and it's like the full like deep dish thing, and it's literally like you'll eat. It's your meal for the day, and it's amazing. So absolutely brilliant. Come here to me. Thank you so much, comrade. I've really enjoyed this. I really loved having you on. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your, I suppose, morning/afternoon on your end, where you're at. Do you want to do any shout outs, any upcoming work, anything you want to say to our audience before we wrap things up?
Absolutely. Similar to what I said last time on the stream, look into a socialist party. I recommend Freedom Road Socialist Party. If you go to frso.org/join, even if you're not sure how you can help, or if you don't feel you have any way to help, I recommend going there and just laying out your situation in the little comment section there. That's what I did, and I literally said, I work way too much and I have a family that takes up time as well, and I don't know how I can help. And they responded to me and they told me how I could help, and I've been able to help through that. So Amazing. That's what I recommend everybody do. Get involved in any way you humanly can. We all have to function under capitalism, but as Marxists and as Marxist-Leninists, a part of Marxist-Leninism is being a part of a democratic centralist party. So practice democratic centralism, join an organization, get out there and serve the people. And thank you, comrades, for having me.
Fuck yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, comrades. Do go ahead and subscribe to Comrades Tankie Talks channel if you haven't already. You'll find a link to that in the description box below, and follow our comrade on Twitter as well. I'll do a quick shout out to our comrades in the chat as I see them here. I see Papi Chulo, Jake English, Quindy, ZB, Marciavelli, Will Turner, Chris P, Space Babies, Comrade Space Babies, big friend of the channel, Sydney Rika, Emulator Noob, Red Fedian Punk, Strega, who else have we got here? Lee Flex, Papi Chulo, Foxtrot Cinco, Jessidiah, Nikolai Begrin, and Noodle Hopper. What else have we got here? Real Politics and Ragnar and Red Pill. And by the way, Red Pill, thank you very much for the super chat earlier on. That helps out. Get me a beer with that. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much, comrades. Comrades, have a lovely new year. Here's to a Reds 2021. All the best for it. I hope it's not a repeat of 2020. I hope we're not sitting here. I hope Tankie Talk and I aren't sitting here 1 year from now saying, fuck, let's go back to 2020. Let's go back to December 31st, 2020 and tell ourselves how good we had it, that we didn't realise how good we had it. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope that 21 is better for all of us. We've got a lot to be optimistic about. We've got a world to win. We've got socialism to win. There's a lot to be excited about, you know. There's a lot to be excited about in the world right now. We'll get our vaccines. We'll do communism. Everything will be cool. That's my hope for 2021. Thank you very much to Molotov's Sika. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. Who says me. Thank you, comrade. There's a few more people in the chat there who've hopped in. I see Pirate Alex. I see Paulila Strega. Who else? Jennifer Asine, probably pronouncing that incorrectly. Jake English, Toik, Chris P, Jessidiah ZB, Ragnar, Red Phoenix Punk, Dylan Mooney, Emulator Noob, and all the rest of the comrades. So come here to me. Thanks very much. Again, thank you so much. Tankie Talk. This has been great. As always, I'm looking forward to chatting with you again in 3 weeks, I think, from now. That'll be a lot of fun. I hope you've had fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And yes, thank you, Paul, for having me on.
Thank you, and I apologize for keeping you a little bit longer than was expected. So, comrades, Happy New Year's. Have a good one. Cheers, everybody. August Slán Fóil. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Bye bye. And we are off.